This is going to go really well.
This is supposed to be the best interview ever. I told you, the dude's great.
This is going to go really well.
The dude is great. He's Blake. I'm Ronnie. All the good names are taken. Podcast. Blake, we're back after a week off. No live show last week, so we could prep for this moment right here. I have been in communication with this guy for the longest time, and if you badger somebody long enough, they agree to come on just to get you to go away. We have an interview with Never Hike Alone's director-writer, Vincent DiSanti. Are you excited for this or what?
I'm so excited, man. I am so excited to bring him on and ask him 100 questions.
All right, should we bring him on right now, or you want
to
shoot? Okay, here we go. Hey,
guys, Vinny. What's up, Vinny?
Hey, how you guys doing, Blake and Ronnie? Good to see you guys.
Good to see you, man.
Now, Vinny, we are huge fans. Believe it or not, about 2 years ago, when Never Hike Alone came into theaters, I took Blake to watch it. We loved it so much that we went back like 2 more times. We have supported this movie. We've supported your work. Love the theater experience of this movie, man. It was great.
Yeah, well, guys, I mean, I kind of got to stop you right there. First of all, Never Hike Alone came out like 6 years ago, and it never went to the theater. It's only been on YouTube. It streams for free. Like anybody in the world can see it anytime. You can stream it. I mean, are you sure you saw Never Hike Alone, or were you like watching something else? And like, you know, you asked me to come on, you emailed me like a bunch of times or messaged me through Instagram, and we emailed all this stuff. And I set time tonight to talk to you. And like, are you telling me that like you've actually never seen the movie? That seems like ridiculous, because like, I don't know, like I've been waiting to be on the Agnat podcast for a while. I mean, I'm a big fan of you guys. I've been listening to you for years. And, you know, to put aside this time to think that we could,
We've only been on YouTube for like 8 months.
Vinny, we've only had this show for a few months now.
And it's all the good names, Vinny.
Oh, it's not Agnat?
No,
I thought it's all the good names are taken, Vinny.
It's because they are. Oh, should we try this again?
Around the clock, we're gonna rock the rhythm of the street, down the block. Around the clock, we're gonna rock the dreams you give, the space to talk. Wanna be somebody, be a contender. Gotta reach for the sky. If you want it, fight for it, or kiss it goodbye. It's make it or break it. Try to survive. Don't ever say never. Keep your dream alive.
Spilled shit all over myself. The spilled shit all over myself podcast.
Oh.
Vinny drools. Can you go in tight on my face so we can crop this out? No, it's fine. I'll look like a weirdo.
It's an honor to have Vincent DiSanti here with us, talking to a lowly show like us. Vinny, welcome to the All the Good Names Are Taken podcast. Glad to have you here. Blake's smiling. He watched your movies. He never does that, by the way. He never does the research of someone we have on. Watch the movies. I'll get him to tell you what he thought about them later. My first question to you is to not go the cookie cutter route. What are some things besides film that you're into? What do you do? What makes up Vinny's day?
What do you do with your life?
What have you
done? What have you done with your life, sir? I don't know. I'm into a lot of different things. Like I'm all over the place. I was actually a big athlete in high school, so I try to stay fit. And,
what sports?
Football, baseball, and track.
What positions? What position?
Football, I was running back, cornerback, kick returner. I played basically every down. I was one of those guys that I just played everything. Baseball, I pitched, played outfield. Track was 50, high jump, 300, 4x2 relay, 4x4 relay. So a lot of sprinting, a lot of speed stuff. This past year, I actually started running for distance for the first time. I ran my first half marathon, which was pretty cool. And then I just got back into oh, nice. There you go.
Yeah.
And then what else? I just try to stay active with stuff like that. I'm also big into music. Play a little guitar. I used to be in a heavy metal band, trying to work on new music in my downtime. And
what was the name of the heavy metal band?
it was called End It All. We were big out of New Bedford, Massachusetts. If you were into like metalcore, like hardcore stuff from like Western Mass, like we definitely had that sound mixed with like Scandinavian death metal, like In Flames and Soilwork meets like Killswitch Engage and Shadows Fall and stuff like that. Metal.
Yeah, Ronnie and I are definitely into that. We love Killswitch Engage and Travis
Cool.
Tritt. So
Travis Tritt. So let me see. What else do I do? I go for long walks on the beach and stare at the sunset. I like photography and editing and Photoshop graphic design type work. So a lot of like type of that stuff. And then just watching movies. I'm a habitual film watcher. I try to watch something at least once a week if I can sit down and concentrate long enough, or if I don't get inspired to run off and go write something. But when it comes to like filmmaking stuff, I take a lot of breaks. Sometimes I just need to get away from it. Like I put a ton of work in and I get a lot and I just burn myself out, and then I take a break and I go experience life, go out and hang out with people, or go do some stuff, or go on an adventure, or go on a drive or something, just to like sort of get out of the monotony. Because if all you do is sit down on your computer is write, it's like, what do you have anything in your life to relate to that you can say, oh, this is what real people do? Like you can kind of tell, like when people are writing about lives they don't live when they're sitting there typing stories, because they don't have the experience to fall back on to like base something on. So I really believe in like, you have to live a life in order to be a writer. You can't just sit at your computer all day and like make up stories, because then nothing really connects to the reality that you actually live in. You have to actually go out there and experience it.
Any truth to the rumor that you took up running to get away from all these fanboys that are constantly bothering you with fan film ideas?
No, I did that because I wasn't working out. I was doing film all the time. I was actually working full time on set for like TV shows, working 70 hours a week, and working on the weekends on my own stuff. And I wasn't taking care of myself. And I was just sort of coming up with different excuses, or I was just completely friggin' tired and couldn't work it into my schedule. So when I had the opportunity to do that, I was like, I got to do something. I need to do something that doesn't require a lot of prep. Like it's something I need to just be able to go, put on some shoes and go running. Like there's no excuse. There's no like, oh, I got to go at a good time at the gym because I don't want to go when 50 other people are there using the same equipment and trying to bend my life around it. It was too complicated for me at the time. And running, you could just get outside and run, especially when I was in LA at the time. There was a park right down the street from me. It had a great course. It was about a 5K, at minimum. And then you could stretch that into 6, 7, 8 miles if you wanted to. And it was a good training course for me to sort of get back on top of my health. And this year I've sort of switched it. So now I feel like I've been committed enough. So now I have been going to the gym. I have been doing more of that type of routine, the more strength and conditioning, trying to get ready to play Jason and things like that. So
what kind of lifts you doing?
Mostly, the regular shit like benching, bench squat, deadlift. I'm doing a lot of like kettlebell work, a lot of like lunging and leg work, because it's a lot of time on your feet. It's a lot of time marching around in like uncomfortable shoes. So the stronger my legs are, the more that's going to be. Doing a lot of chest and shoulders so I can get that kind of built up and kind of fill out the costume a little bit.
All right. So it's funny that we brought up running first, almost like we had a plan. We do Venmo questions around here, Vinny, and Boz has a $3 Venmo where he asked multiple questions. Longest run you've ever been on?
Half marathon, 13.1 miles. I ran what's called the Westport Half Marathon, which is down by where I live, called Horseneck Beach. So it's a really cool little course. The first half is like all on like forest roads, and then the second half is all along the beach. You run right along the beach. Right down, I think they call it like East Beach. You kind of run down that direction, so it's a really cool run.
Sounds like this dude's
That's awesome, man. I ran my first 5K back in November, and I actually placed first in my division.
There you go.
Yep.
Anyway, we could get a running, like a race between you two. We can meet halfway. What's halfway between Mississippi and Massachusetts?
I think it's Alabama.
No.
I'll race you to Alabama from Mass.
We can get like a course. We can.
Oh my God! What is this? Forrest Gump?
Yes. we can tie it into the movie. We can have Indigo supporters there.
Never run alone.
There you go. And you two are just running. And then after about 10 minutes, it ends because Blake falls out.
It doesn't last 10 minutes.
Next question from Boz, getting the money's worth out of his $3. Do you listen to music or podcasts when you're running?
I listen to music. I have 2 playlists. I have a heavy metal playlist, and I have 3 playlists. I have a folk playlist, like a groove playlist, and a heavy metal playlist. And so, like, depending on my mood, I sort of pick one or the other. Like, it's all like folk is like Lord Huron and like things of that nature, like, you know, Jose Gonzalez and things that are just like acoustic, ethereal, just get lost in my head and sort of kind of cruise.
What about groove? Cool and the Gang?
No, I don't even know the bands. Literally one day, like my brother showed me a band and I listened to it, and I just listened to Spotify and kept going through like, what's your next suggestion? What's your next suggestion? Every time I heard a good one, I just hit add to list. I don't even know half the bands that are on this list. I just like that one song and move on.
Well, the rest of his questions you pretty much have answered, and so I'm not going to go through them. You told us you ran a half marathon, and his other question was solo or social runs, and you pretty much said
solo.
So
Thank you,
Yeah,
Boz, for the donation.
Thank you.
Thanks for the $3.99, Boz. We appreciate it.
I'm glad that people are that people got that into my running when I was doing it, because I was doing it just to keep myself on track. I was like, if I don't make a post and I see that I haven't posted in this many days, I'm going to be like, oh, you got to do something. So it kind of motivated me. And then people would come up to me at conventions and be like, your running posts, like, I love them. And I'm like, what? Like, I'm literally running so short. Like I got a friend who did like 1,000 miles this year. And I'm like, geez, like that's commitment. Like, I wish I was that dedicated, or that, like, I wish I had that much time, but like I try to fit anytime I'm like, okay, I have time in my day to fit it. Usually helps. And it helps me get stuff done too, because I sort of take a break, let my mind rest, and then get back to it, rather than trying to just power through everything, which usually ends up with like long periods of like my brain just like melting.
Well, Vinny, you brought up earlier that you were working on sets and TV shows and things like that. Whenever, you know, I know absolutely nothing, but I would think that after the success of, you know, your 2 movies, I know you got more than that, but I'm talking about specifically Never Hike Alone and Never Hike in the Snow, that you would be like full time on your projects now. Are you still working on television shows? I mean, can you give us if you want, can you give us a look into that? I mean, what do you do?
Yeah, I mean, so for years,
are there any shows that we would know? And that's
I worked on The Rookie for ABC. I worked on American Horror Stories. There was a show that came out on Apple called Best Foot Forward or something like that, about like there's a skier with a disability that wrote a story about like his youth. I did like a couple weeks on that before I did another show called Chad, which did season 1 up in Portland. They shot season 2 in LA. That was the last big thing I worked on. But the show got like postponed or canceled like before it even came out. So like we did like a full season of work and it still hasn't been shown anywhere. It's a great show. I had a wonderful time on it, and I'd be sad if they never release anything, which would be a bummer.
What's it about?
It stars Nasim Pedrad from SNL, and she plays like a 14, 15-year-old boy from like they're immigrants from Iran, or like second generation, and she's in high school. Well, he's in high school. She plays the boy Chad, and he's just like an awkward high school boy trying to fit in. And you know, it's him, his sister, his mom, his uncle, who's hilarious. It was a really great cast, and so a lot of the things that I do on set, I ended up becoming what's called a first team PA, and the first team PA works with the assistant director's department. That's like part of the DGA. So even though I want to direct, so being in a path to get a DGA card is sort of like the best thing for me. So that way
that's
DGA,
the Directors Guild?
Directors Guild of America. Yeah. So it's sort of like, that's like what you got to do. You got to go through those sort of steps to become official. I mean, you can also sell a movie and direct a movie and get in you know, the DGA that way. But until that happens, it's good that I'm on set, because I'm learning a ton when I'm there. There's a lot of set procedure that goes into making big movies with real actors, and you know, a crew of 50 to 80 people. Like there's just a lot that goes involved. And I get to take a small chunk of it where I mostly, like when I work as a first teamer, which means I work with the cast. That means working with a second AD, someone who is like third or fourth position in the hierarchy. There's a first AD who's like our general on set. The first AD is the person who like runs the logistics on set. They're the one telling everybody what to do. They're the point person for, you know, every head of department, and they get it done for the director. He said, you know, they ask the director what they want to do next. They move on to that shot. They're the one in charge of setting up that shot, getting the approval from the director and shooting and keeping the set on time, you know, keeping us moving at a good pace. So we're not going into overtime. So we're not spending a bunch of extra money and not going over budget. And so in that department, like we are a section of like the time management. And part of my time management skills come with the cast and making sure that they get the set on time, that while they're on set, they get into their costumes, that they get wired up for sound, that if they have any special makeup or props, or, you know, they got to go see, you know, the hair department for something special when they get on set, or, you know, they forgot something back in their trailer. So I got to make sure that somebody back at base camp can get the thing in their trailer and send it back up, so that by the time that camera is set up and they are ready to shoot, those actors are ready to step right into the spot and start shooting, that there's no excuse of like, oh, we're waiting on this. Oh, we're waiting on this. Oh, they're not on set. So there's a lot to coordinate with them. And that's, you know, more than one person can handle. So it gets split up between a second AD that's on set and about 4 main PAs on set, where there'll be a first team PA, there'll be a key PA. That person is usually working with the camera department. They work with the grip department. They work with all like the big hitters that really like, what do you need to set up this shot? Where does the equipment have to go? Is there anything within the shot that needs to move? So say they parked a bus in the background because that's what brought the background down. Oh, the bus is there, so we got to move the bus. We got to find a new parking space for the bus, or we need to find a new parking space for these trucks. And you got to work with the transportation department to make sure that they can park somewhere else. There's a background PA. The background PA is can be in charge up to like 2 to 3 people to 300 to 1,000 people. Like all the background orcs that are running through the background in some of these like scenes, or like background people, pedestrians at a restaurant. You're working with a second AD that's just in charge of those people, and you set them in the background. You basically dress the background with people. You know, you create crosses, you create movement, you create relationships, you sort of build this world that's happening behind your main cast to make it feel like they're in a real world. They're in a real world setting, timing when cars are going to drive through, or which order they're going to be parked in. Like for, there was a show called Why Women Kill. For a couple episodes, I got to be the person who was in charge of setting background cars. So I was the one who parked every single car on the driveway, presented to the director. They say, oh, I don't want a green one there. I want a blue one. So you get the green one out, you put the blue one in. It's like, it seems like everything there that's on set seems like it's just supposed to be there, but everything was hand placed.
Trying to figure out why he needed to start running Blake and lifting and taking care of himself. This sounds miserable. It sounds like the worst, Vinny. Get out of there.
No, it is. When you see it all come together, it's great. Like when you have to do stunts and you have to do second team stuff. I mean, not second team. You have to do like stunt work and like stunt rehearsals, or like second unit where you get to go off and shoot that stuff. There's somebody else who's in charge. It's like the walkie PA. So everybody on set has a walkie. That walkie has to work. Sometimes there's less people on set. Sometimes there's more people on set. So you're getting that stuff to people. So there's like understanding the logistics of all that stuff. You understand as a director that when you want something done on set, so when I say, okay, here's the shot that we're going to do, we're going to go, you know, I'm going to dolly in, I'm going to push in on this, and I need this to happen here and blah, blah, blah. I know that as I'm making these decisions, what everyone around me has to do to get that done. So if I'm running out of time, I can check down to, okay, maybe we don't go for the big crane shot here. Don't give me an hour setup for the crane. You know, put this on a set of rails. We'll only push 2 or 3 feet. That will cut down 45 minutes of time. We can get this shot this way. We'll shoot it wider, and then I'll go in and I'll do a couple of handheld inserts, and then we'll get out of here faster than trying to do all of that stuff versus like, well, I know I have the time. Now it's time to spend the money and do something big. So having that self-awareness of what everyone on set is responsible for. So like, yes, I'm working with the cast. That gives me a great relationship with speaking to first team, getting used to speaking with actors, carrying myself with actors, not as someone who is oh my God, it's you. Oh, how can I, and like kissing their ass, but being like, yo, how was your weekend?
At a con before, boy.
Like, oh man, like being able to tell like the lead actress on a show that you just took like a big dump down by Crafty, and having that type of rapport with them where it's like, it's funny and you hang out with them like you're friends. But you also have that work relationship where they trust you to have them ready and not bullshit them, but also understanding like every single department, getting to know the leads of all these different departments, the underlings in all these different departments, and see how everyone stacks up, what everyone's role is, and respecting those roles and having those boundaries. So that way, what you're supposed to do and what you bring to the table. Like, I'm from Massachusetts. I'm a big Patriots fan. I'm a big fan of the do your job motto. Like, what's your job? Do it. And if you do your job and everybody does their job, we all have victory. And when someone's struggling, we try to help in and kind of pick them up and work together to get everything done. And yeah, dude, sometimes sets are miserable, man. Like, you have a call time at 4 a.m. on Monday and you got to be there, and you're there till like 8, 9 at night, Monday night. And then the rest of the week, like, you got like a 5 a.m. call time. And then by Friday, you could have like a 7 p.m. call time. So not only you working Monday to Friday, but now you're working Friday night into Saturday morning. You're sleeping the rest of your Saturday, getting up Sunday, trying to reset your week in a single day, trying to recover, and then get back to it at 4 a.m. on Monday again for 3 months straight, because you're shooting a half-hour pilot. And if it's an hour show, that you can double that. Like, or if there's 22, like the Rookie was 22 episodes. We did a straight month and a half in the rain. Was ridiculous. It's kind of like it was raining in like LA right now. Like, every time we went out, every time we shot outside, it was just like rain, 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 rain. So like, as a PA, as someone who's on the AD staff, you've got to think about all these different things about like, okay, I need to make sure these tents are set up for this department so they can do the makeup for this person, and make sure we don't get the characters wet and keep everybody dry and all this stuff. And it was just, it gets you so used to the process and how stressful that sounds that by the time you sort of get into it, you just sort of like, I mean, this can't be any worse than the worst time that was the worst. And that worst isn't even that bad when I think about it, because we still got through it.
How did you take all these experiences? Like, all this stuff that you're saying seems overwhelming for somebody like me that's not nowhere. All of this chaos had to have helped you become like the greatest guy ever on this set, because you've seen all this, all the chaos that goes into it. So surely you were like, I'm going to do a 180 on my set from this right here. I'm going to make sure this and this. And plus, it probably helped you do like 500 different jobs while you were making this movie.
Totally. I mean, it just opens up your eyes to a lot of things. It's a great way to learn by just throwing yourself into it. And the people you meet. I mean, a lot of the times it's like you can learn so much at lunch. You sit down with the right person. You hear a story about another movie they worked on or experience they had, or like I've met people who have worked on original Friday the 13th movies in different ways and shapes and forms. And they've told me stories about stuff that you never would hear, like, stuff that's never been in the book, stuff that's never been really talked about. It's just cool to know. And then, when I step onto my set, I know what everyone has to do. And I also know what we have delegated for things for people to do and what we don't. So I know how to fill in gaps or work with people to sort of like, hey, so we don't have this, so let's fill in this gap this way and we'll get ahead of it. Like that's sort of what we're working on right now in pre-production for Never Hike Alone 2 is we know what we have covered. What don't we have covered? How are we going to do that stuff now so that when we get there, it's easier to take care of this when we don't have somebody who's necessarily dedicated to it? Or is there someone who we can dedicate to it? How many volunteers can we actually add to the project without like running ourselves poor with like feeding extra mouths? Like all of those different things kind of all there, but you think about it. If all you think about as a filmmaker is, I got to get my vision on the screen. It's a vision and it's just got to happen. Like you're an asshole, because you go out there, you set an expectation for something that you have no idea of what it takes to actually accomplish. And you may, like in my standpoint, I have a goal. I have a standard that I want to hit, that when people watch our films, they can't tell the difference between fan film and real film. That we blur that line or we just erase it completely and they feel like they're watching something that was studio done. That's hard. Like that's not easy to do. I have to ask a lot of my crew. My crew brings a lot to the table with their own talent, with their own experience, with their own equipment. I can't pay the studio rates. So I have to make sure that I come to set with my shit together. that I can give them stuff that, even though they're not getting paid their industry rate, even though they're not getting, 90% of the things they would on a professional set and be taken care of in that way, that it's lucrative enough in other ways that the project they know will look good, will be received well, will get into good festivals, will be something they can put on their reel, and not just like tuck it in the back of their reel, but like forefront, like they want to put this stuff up front and they want it to be the thing that they brag about to their friends. Not that we're paying people in what's it called when you pay somebody an exposure. Like, we have gotten together and worked for free together at times, but for the most part, like, I try to respect my crew enough that I can go out, I can raise money, I can build some money so that when they come out, that they're not completely boned, that they're not like a week's without pay. Like, I can at least take care of my crew, and I'll take the hit. Like, the types of sacrifices that I make, I'll make those sacrifices of like not getting paid, of like just trying to find a way to scrape by, just so I can get them out there, because I know the long-term plan of, if we put enough of these things out there that look better and better each time, and we get to the end of this Never Hike Alone road, and people see the true vision that I've had in my head ever since the first Never Hike Alone. Like, by the time we finished the first Never Hike Alone 2 formed in my head, and it became a long sort of journey and battle to figure out, how do I take this vision in my head and really apply it to the real world and make this affordable and make this something that I could actually do. And I could have just rushed into trying doing it right away, but there's no way in hell it would be as good as it is going to be, because I had to go through a lot of trial and tribulation after Never Hike Alone was finished to sort of really understand the scope of what we were trying to do and really put this film in the best kind of position to succeed, versus, kind of going through the motions with it, or doing something that didn't feel like it was coming from a place of passion, or something that was just sort of, a lot of the times we can write story and things just happen in the story, versus when you really sit back and look at it and you start to analyze every frame that's on the screen, or you're talking about the story that's on the screen, that it is like, you don't even realize how many things are connecting at that moment, and how many things are feeding into each other, that by the time you get to the end of the movie, it feels so satisfied, because you feel like everything in the movie was told to you, but like not a lot of things were said out loud, but you got it. You felt it within like the framework of the film. And that takes a long time to really kind of like, you have to have honest conversations about yourself. The first thing you write down on the script is not the best idea. Like, that's just your starter thing. So like, working it until it is really ready to go. And then also the responsibility of running crowdfunding campaigns and running, film sets, and then also having to earn a life, and then schedule 50 people in one place at one time and make that all sort of work out. So there's a lot that goes into it.
Going back to crowdfunding real quick. Sorry, Vinny.
Yeah.
Going back to the crowdfunding, how aggravating was that? First off, how much did you originally raise through crowdfunding for Never Hike Alone?
On Never Hike Alone, we raised $19,000.
Okay, so you raised $19,000, and I'm sure, because I don't have a lot of knowledge about this, there were perks with donating, whether it be in the credits, or did you offer like physical items that these people could get?
Yeah, so we did like T-shirts and posters and pins and VHS tape. Oh no, we didn't do VHS tapes at the time. I didn't think I could do home video at the time, so I didn't do that. We did masks, props from the film, digital rewards, things like that. And
what kind of problems did you run? The reason I was asking is, I'm sure you had to run into tons of problems from people that donated, that getting the actual physical items, whether they're like, okay, I want my money back because this is not what I thought it was going to be. Was there anything like that, or was
everybody was like, everybody who invested in the film, everybody who invested in the film was stoked. I mean, when it came out and it like just started hitting up all the trades and like all that stuff, everyone felt like they made the proper investment. And the first Never Hike Alone was a really special experience for fans. And I can say that because I witnessed it, and I've heard enough people come up to my booth and tell me that. And like, it felt really good. My only goal was to put smiles on the faces of Friday the 13th fans, because it had been so long since we had something to smile about. And when we got Thom to open up those doors after a movie that was like pretty friggin' watchable, it's just the icing on top, the cherry on top for people.
Is it in bad taste to say that's where you fully got me in that movie? Because
No,
I'm watching.
that was the thing to push you over the edge, because with that movie you're not getting so much. You're not getting kills. You're not getting breasts. You're not getting you're not even getting the Harry Manfredini score. Like, you're getting all these different things. It's a different story. It's a different Jason. You're not getting the same mask. You're getting the ghost talk with no, everybody's like, where's the thing? And blah, blah, blah. And it's like, I didn't know. Not everybody knew where we were at in continuity. They thought that we were just going to be like a direct sequel to 6, or, we were a direct sequel from 1, and nobody knew that. Like, no, we're a Paramount. We're Paramount. Like, this is Paramount era Jason. This is if the Paramount era kept going. They never went to New Line. Like, get rid of all the New Line movies. This is Paramount Extended.
So right after Part 8.
Right after Part 8, the Paramount Extended Universe. 20 years after Part 8, really. And like, set in real time. Like, this is really 2017. If the last time we saw Jason was really the last time we saw Jason was Jason Takes Manhattan, as silly as 7 and 8 are. Let's just, like, even in our teaser that we did, you saw it. It said, cabin explosion. Didn't say anything about Jason. What really happened on the SS Lazarus? Like, doesn't say anything about Jason. We're showing that, like, Jason has blipped on the screen twice since Jason Lives, and Tommy hasn't found him yet. And so, so when it comes to, like, the that side of it with fans, it was like they didn't know what to think, because it wasn't a traditional Friday, and we hadn't yet been out there to deconstruct and explain to people, like, how we were able to sort of replace things. Like, we don't have kills, but we replaced things that would have been kills in old movies where it's really high level stunts that don't kill him. He survives and keeps going, which is different and makes him different. So you get the same experience, but now you don't have that feeling like, oh, you jumped off the second story of the building. Why did you die? Like, you even hit the car on the way down. That would have braced your impact. You didn't die from it. You would have, like, actually been saved by it. Like, it caught you. Like, why are you dying in this scene? Like, there were things like that always got me. Like, I wanted to remove all that, make it as grounded as possible. So you have that. You're sort of trying to figure out whether you like it or not. And then all of a sudden, Tom opens up the doors, and what have we all wanted? Like, anyone who's a big Paramount era fan, what have we wanted? We want Tommy to come.
We want Thom Mathews.
And look, I'm watching
fresh off the game and all that stuff. So it was really big for us.
Let me say this, Ronnie. Like, one of the bigger regrets I have, and Ronnie mentioned to you earlier, I don't really do the whole fan film thing. Mm-hmm. And first off, probably the biggest compliment I feel like I could give you, this doesn't feel like a fan film at all. I had so much fun watching this, but my only regret is I wish I could have went into this without anything Ronnie telling me. Like, I wish I would have known it wasn't a Friday the 13th fan film, and then seeing the lead actor discover that sign that says Crystal Lake. Oh my gosh, that'd been fantastic to see with fresh eyes. Mm-hmm. Because all is this guy's in the woods, he's filming himself, and someone's watching him. And then when he comes upon that Crystal Lake sign, it's just fantastic.
Yeah, you just reminded me. That was a big kind of thing for me when I was making that as a part of the storyline. It was like, I wanted it to slowly unravel. There were little cues, Wessex County, going through the mountains and stuff like that, like the stalker vision, seeing Jason earlier on in the film. But like, once you see that no trespassing sign, that was sort of like your first, like, real big hint, because that was the trespassing sign from Part 2. And then you saw Jason, but you didn't really see him clearly. Like, and he didn't look like the Jason you saw before.
Right.
And it isn't until you get to that sign that it really, like, all clicks, and it brings you back into it. And that's what was great about Never Hike as a storytelling device, was it was a chance to reintroduce people to Friday the 13th. Now, I don't know if you guys know this, but I'm a huge critic of 2009. I talk shit about it all the time on social media. It's become like a running gag.
Can I ask why? Because look, here a little bit later in the conversation, I want to talk my favorite and your favorite and Blake's favorites. But 2009, when I first saw it, I was like, okay, you can tell this is made by the guy that just did Texas Chainsaw Massacre. It's almost like the exact same theme, tone, whatever. Mm-hmm. It's there. I like the evolution of the Jason, as far as they gave us Baghead or Mummy Head Jason, and then they gave us a mask. Mm-hmm. But then I was like, this is nuts, because me and Blake were talking about this on Friday the 13th last week or 2
Mhm.
weeks ago, whenever this airs.
I'm curious to see how much you change your answer in front of Vinny, because I've heard you're on record on this show multiple times saying how much you love 2009.
No, I do love 2009 in the fact that I think they took it seriously. But there's also some things I don't like about 2009 because, first off, the cursing, the sex. I know it's a Friday the 13th movie, but it just seemed violent,
forced.
And
It seemed like it's vile and violent. Like it was violently vulgar, and it was so over the top and so like, especially when you compare it to like that was 2009. 10 to 12 years later, a film like that would really get like. I don't know if actresses would do those scenes. Now it just seems so. Like even in the theater, I was like, this is sort of embarrassing. Like this reminds me of when I was a kid and I used to watch these movies because I loved the kill scenes and I loved watching sort of how those scare scenes would come up. And I was waiting for the scare scenes to come up, and then a sex scene would come up, and then my mom would walk in.
Yes.
She'd yell at me for watching like I'm like, I don't even care about this. Like it's fine. Like, oh, boob, whatever. Like I have the internet. Like who gives a shit? Like it was what it was. Like I was there for the scares. And so that was one of the things that never happened. I was like, I'm not going to worry about that stuff. Like that has nothing to do with the story. And that's such a silly concept of like from the 80s. Like it's such an 80s concept. It's like every 2 minutes, like, Sean would always say, like, every 6 minutes there has to be boobs or blood. And it's like,
no, the best movie in the franchise did not have that. The best movie in the franchise did not have that. And what Blake is trying to corner me on is I ranked Friday the 13th, the remake, above Freddy versus Jason, which I think is the worst as far as terrible characters. And let's just put these guys. I ranked it. Where'd I rank it, Blake? Like, I think I may have ranked it. I didn't rank it number one. So, look, I thought the movie, the cold opening, just had me. I was like, here we go. He just killed everybody that was there in violent ways. But I can see. It's
but there was also.
It's not really a Jason movie because he's just like a damn tank and he's running through multiple people at once, where it's in the Jason movies that I love, it's one at a time.
Yep. So that was one of the things I thought that they gave up on early. He gets into like chasing a group very early on. Everybody's aware of his presence. The thing for me was I was really into the pre-production of that film. I was watching everything that came out. I watched every single interview, all that stuff. So like, you had the DP calling the film a piece of shit in interviews, like, oh, the first Friday the 13th is a piece of shit. Why are we remaking this crap? And it's like, well, if you think it's crap, why are you remaking it? Get out of there. Like, get somebody in there who loves it, who wants to pay homage to it, who like is like emphatically in love with it, like I am. Why are you there? And like, I heard stories like even Marcus Nispel was like resistance to do it because he wasn't as familiar with Friday the 13th as he was with Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and was sort of felt like like they just wanted him for the name. They wanted him because he had success with Texas Chainsaw Massacre. And he is a good director. He's got a good style, but you have to understand Friday the 13th on a deeper level. And I don't think at that time he really had that deep level knowledge of like, okay, he got like the crash, like 2009 feels like a crash course in Friday the 13th. But like, imagine like you've waited, 20 years for a great like video game to come out. And the only thing that comes out is a tutorial. You know what I mean? Like you need something more than that. Like, and Friday the 13th, 2009 felt like a tutorial. It felt like, how dumb do you think I am? Like going through the cabin and saying, does that bed say Jason on it? Oh, you look just like the woman in this locket. That's going to become a very important thing later in the movie. And it was like, all this stuff is being forced.
Viet Cong tunnels.
The tunnels like didn't need to, like, who cares? Like it just, for me, it felt like too much cliff noting, not enough establish a real world, get things going. And then how are you going to build on top of this world to make more movies? Because they sort of blew that out of the water at the end. And what is Jason? Jason's human. Well, at the end, you stuffed his head into a wood chipper, choked him out, did all this stuff. Like, is he dead or undead? Or are you going back to the old excuse saying he just comes back and we'll never tell you why? It's like, no, we wanted answers. We wanted one or the other. We want human Jason. Explain why he's human. Explain why he never came back to tell his mother. Give me these things, fill in these gaps. Because if you don't, it leaves that big plot hole for more films to fall into and never make sense. or make
a good opportunity to, at the very beginning of it, I thought they had a good opportunity to change the mythos and the fact that Jason never drowned. It's just him and Pamela out there, and maybe he got wounded, and that's the reason his face is the way it is. He got in a horrible accident because two counselors were doing something they shouldn't have been doing instead of watching the kids. And then, it didn't have to be a drowning, and then you get away from the whole undead aspect and things like that.
Well, I don't mind the undead aspect. I don't mind in fact, that's our whole mythos is undead. And undead gets introduced earlier on into the films than people think. Like if you talk to Joe Zito will tell you that at the beginning of the final chapter, Jason is dead. He comes back from the dead. He's a ghoul in final chapter, coming straight from Zito, saying he's just gets back from the dead. And he goes with the 80s theology, which is we don't need a reason why, he just does. And that worked back then. But now people just want something a little bit more. So if Jason did survive, what I would say if I was sitting in a writer's room is, okay, if Jason loves his mother so much, why is he going to be away from her for 20 years? Why does he not run out of the woods and say, Mom, stop killing people. I'm right here. You don't need to kill anybody. I never died. And if she found him, why is she still so emotional about it? You know what I mean? Just fill in those gaps, answer those. It's not to say that you can't do that. It's just saying you have to give me a reason to keep watching after I ask that question and say, oh, that's why.
Blake,
okay, I'm in on this.
Wasn't it Tom Savini that said
it was
when they asked him to come on for Friday the 13th Part 2, and he's like, why the hell are we having Part 2 if Jason's alive? Why was she killing people in the first place? Why wouldn't he come out of the woods and say, hey, here I am, like Vinny just said? Mm-hmm. So Blake's looking at me with those judging eyes because we did a ranking and I put Friday 13th, the remake. I think it was in the top 7.
It was it was very high. It was
here's the thing. I'll say this in defense of my own criticism is for the movie is the fact that Friday the 13th is a 12 it's a 12 slice pie of pizza. I'm sorry, I'm just butchering this right now, but it's a 12 slice pizza with 12 different toppings. And when you ask one person to say what their favorite one is, someone's going to pick up a different slice every time.
That's right.
And people are going to pick them up in different orders and things like that. It's a taste thing. And I get it. It was just for me. And I think for a certain, Never Hike Alone is part of this experiment. I was like, there is a fan out there that is like me, that sees the potential in Friday the 13th, that sees all these storylines, that sees all these things that got left undone, all these things we love that they just threw aside. And they said, you know what, if you threw out all the bullshit, if you stop just repeating the dumb kids and sex and drugs and all these different things, and you just got down to this story of Jason and why he keeps coming back and Pamela and all this stuff, there's a story in there. And if you tell it right, there's a new franchise in there that we can build on or watch and take as viewers and say wow, they really improved this. They really took this to the next level. And for me, 2009 was we're just going to do the same exact thing. And for a lot of people, that's all they wanted. Just go back to camp, kill the kids, show me some titties. It was just you know what I mean? And that was that. But
I think I was just happy to have another movie that wasn't.
That's all it was. That's all it was. He gets excited over new releases, and when he walks out of that theater, he's like, "It was the best." And it takes him a little while to realize. Meanwhile, Vinny, I'm taking 2 slices of pizza. I'm taking Friday 13th Part 2, and I'm taking Never Hike Alone.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, 2 is great. 2 is one of the tops, definitely.
What ingredient would Shelley be and Ted?
I think
meatball for Shelley.
Meatball, yeah. Shelley would be a meatball.
And Ted would be the red pepper.
Yeah.
Welcome to God's country. First off, I've got to talk about Never Hike Alone. Blake gave you the best compliment ever because he likes nothing, Vinny. He likes nothing. So the fact that he actually and he would tell you too, it would have got weird. He'd been like, So you said you wanted to make a fan film that didn't look like a fan film. And I remember
mission accomplished.
I remember when I watched it for the first time, I'm like, okay, all these horror fans are up in arms. Another fan film. I've seen fan films before. This guy is no John McBride. Let me take a look. And as I'm watching it, I'm like, okay, well, I thought I would be annoyed at the GoPro stuff. I'm not. This is awesome. I already knew it was about Jason. And tell you what, I've only seen your movie twice, Vinny. this second viewing to get ready for you to come on the show is the first time I noticed Jason in the background step out. I'm a horrible movie watcher, by the way. It's him step out and reveal himself before it got to Crystal Lake. The first time I watched your movie, I missed the Jason, and Crystal Lake was revealed before I saw Jason for the first time. So, and as I was watching it, I'm like, okay, this is not bad. And then I'm a weirdo because I used to sit in class when I was like in the 3rd or 4th grade, and I would draw Jason from the side perspective from Friday the 13th Part 6 with the green head and the mask and all that, because that's my favorite. And as I'm sitting there as I'm watching, I was like, okay, he went with Green Jason. So, you know, I'm not even thinking about timelines at that time or where this is set afterwards. And then this is good. This is great. He's eventually going to kill this guy, and it's going to end with like boof, cha, 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 and all that. Then he gets into the ambulance. I'm like, okay, this is really cool. They're going to kill him in the ambulance. He almost got away. And then you see Thom Mathews, who I am the biggest fan of Thom Mathews, and Blake is too. Return of the Living Dead, Friday the 13th Part 6. That's all he ever had to do for us, because I've watched both of those a million times. He's there. And I'm like, this dude is fixing to kill Thom Mathews in a Friday the 13th movie, and I'm fixing to hate this. And then his name was Tommy, but I didn't put it together. I was like, oh, he's being cute. He's being clever here. And then at the end of it, when he goes, hey, maggot head, and I'm like, Tommy Jarvis. And they're both alive as they drive off. I'm like, this dude has branched off from Friday the 13th Part 6, and it is amazing.
Well, Ronnie, did you even notice? I'm assuming it was the Easter egg. Did you notice that the paramedic was named Axel?
I did. And
okay.
Look, I've done a lot of research for Vinny coming on because I'm excited about this interview. I saw the Axel there, and I watched the fan film Jason Rises. And our boy right down here plays Axel the cop, equipped with Playboy and everything. So you got to check that out, Blake.
I'm about to check it out.
Oh, you haven't seen Jason Rising yet? Oh, that one's great. That was a lot of fun to work on.
I mean, Vinny, in my defense, Ronnie made me watch something one time that it had Michael Myers and Jason like doing kung fu against each other.
Oh, Evil Emerges?
I have no idea. I couldn't tell you.
I mean, it's pretty good.
I just told Ronnie, don't ever send me anything ever again, ever. And, you know,
well, that's the reason I didn't send you Vinny playing the Shape in the Halloween fan film from like a year or two ago. I don't know time, but I wanted to get, because I wanted to come on here and go, dude, you sucked as the Shape. So Blake, it picks up this Halloween fan film. I think Jimmy Champagne had something to do with it. It picks up like in between when Laurie shoots him in the arm after 2018, as he's rounding the house after he killed Vicky. And then it picks back up later. It's what he did in the meantime between that. And you got to go watch it just for the opening. I'm not saying the rest of the movie's not good, but the opening is a little boy going down the road on a bicycle, and there's cornfields next to him, Haddonfield Huskers. And he stops, and Michael Myers is in the freaking corn staring at him. Like, he puts the light on him, and he's just standing there. And this dude's playing like a perfect Shape. And he's like right there, and he's looking. And he's got the knife, and they're just staring at each other. And the kid drops the bike and takes off running like an idiot for some reason. I would have like ratted that thing right on down the road. But that's all I had.
There you go. Yeah, you got to check that one out. That one's called Happy Halloween.
Happy Halloween.
I'll check it out.
I'll take credit for getting the name for that, because we were all out there trying to figure out what to call it. And I was like, dude, no one's done this yet. Call it Happy Halloween. Because that just gets it. Like, that just like slays it. Like, you don't even, like, people are going to say Happy Halloween. They're going to hashtag Happy Halloween. Like, it's all going to be there naturally. Just easy hashtag, slip right into it. So I'm very, and then it even sounds cool, like Happy Halloween 2, 3, 4, like, as long as they keep going. I know they did a second one. But yeah, no. And then we're also doing Nightmare on Elm Street. You know that too, right?
I was told specifically by one of our friends to ask you about Dylan's new Nightmare. Now, I'm not going to lie to you. I'm not going to BS you. I'm not a BSer. Tell him, Blake, I'm not a BSer.
He's not a BSer, Vinny.
I'm going to give it to you straight about Dylan's new Nightmare. I haven't done a lot of research on it. I know that you have YouTuber and voice guy Dave McRae as Freddy Krueger. So I got some questions about him. I've never talked to him or met him. But can you give us a little info about that without giving it all away?
Yeah, I'll just start off by saying it's a project by a good friend of mine, Cecil Laird. He's the writer-director. He works out of something called The Horror Show, which is another YouTube channel that does a lot of reviews and, reaction videos, and they do shorts and skits and stuff like that. And he approached me a few years ago about producing Dylan's New Nightmare, which is a sequel to Wes Craven's New Nightmare. This isn't a traditional Nightmare on Elm Street film. This is a Wes Craven's New Nightmare meta nightmare world. And we were able to convince Miko Hughes, who played Dylan Porter in the original Wes Craven's New Nightmare. He was also in Pet Sematary and Kindergarten Cop and lots of other. Yeah,
boys have a penis, girls have a vagina.
Yeah.
Boys have a penis, girls have a vagina.
Thanks for the tip.
So Miko, we met Miko at a convention. We talked to him about it. We showed him the script. I thought it was a very good idea that basically after all these years, after they defeated the Dream Demon, that the Dream Demon is now retaking the shape of Freddy and is trying to come back to Dylan as he's dealing with adult fears and sort of trying to live in an adulthood. And so it took a long time to put the project together. It was, we brought on Dave McRae to play Freddy, who was Cecil's first choice. Dave, who is a voice actor, is an actor, was very, he's more of a Halloween guy. He's a big Halloween fan. He's known for doing Halloween kind of breakdowns and things like that. An expert on it. He did another film called It's Me, Billy, about Black Christmas, which is one of the better fan films that are out there. Definitely people are going to check that out. So, we brought this
good movie. It is a good movie. It's a good movie. I mean, I wouldn't sit here and say it wasn't, but I mean, I'm not a big fan of Black Christmas. I mean,
that's the thing about it, is that Black Christmas has such a niche. It doesn't have such a niche audience, but it's got a more of a niche audience. It's sort of got a different tone to it. And Dave and his team could have gone and made some mega slasher with it, done all this crazy stuff that wouldn't have been the traditional. They stuck with the traditional stuff and did with the film. They honored it. So I think it carries sort of that.
And it looked really good, and the acting was good.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's their production value was through the roof, and the acting was really good, and the writing was really good. And so now they have an opportunity to come back when they do the second one to sort of finish the story. And when we all kind of get it, it's you guys asked me before, we did Never Hike Alone. We only raised $19,000. We raised a little bit more in private funding from other people. I'd say another 15 to 20, but a lot of it came out of our pockets and donating time and doing stuff. And so that movie looked as good as it did with almost no budget. And so when we did Never Hike in the Snow, we had, double the budget, about 75 to 80 grand to do that. The uptick in production value, but that costs money. And now I couldn't get people that were just going to give me weekends of their life for free. I needed to say no, I'm going to give you money so I can entice you not to work on that set this weekend and work on my set. It's a competitive market. So, I think that, I saw sort of the backlash from the shorter film from that. And I saw that Dave sort of did the same thing. He did an episode, and then we're doing the same thing with Dylan's New Nightmare. It's an episode. It's 20 minutes because, we ended up raising, I want to say $20,000 to $40,000, which is for 25 minutes, a good investment. That means that we put the production value in. We're able to get Nora Hewitt from Face Off. She's a student of Tom Savini. She's an amazing artist. She did the artwork and the effects art on Never Hike in the Snow. She did the axe in the mouth. She did that dead head mark. Really? That's Nora. And so she did with her friend Mikey Rotz, did the sculpt for our Freddy. So we don't have a silicone mask Freddy. We have a traditional, done the right way Freddy. That was the whole thing. And so we were actually finally able to shoot that late last year. Finally put that in the can. Pandemic set that film back 2 years. We were supposed to film in 2019 and we didn't film until last year. And it was good because we got to make a lot of great sort of upgrades of different things. We got a new DP, Ben Meredith, who was just a godsend to, bringing on such a high level of camera expertise and being able to go out there with very little budget and make it look really, really good. Cecil did a great job of finding great locations that we're able to go and set design. I would say this is one of the best set design films that we've done so far as Womp Stomp Films. And we're really when people bring me on to a project in this capacity, I'm sort of I just sort of oversee. I just sort of let people do their thing and then step in when I think, hey, this isn't gonna meet my standard, or we talked about a standard that we wanted to hit. And I think if you make this decision, that's going to keep you from reaching your goal. Let's discuss it. And so, the real sort of testament for filmmakers or anybody who wants to do anything in life is, can you listen and can you take criticism and can you have a conversation where you don't feel threatened, but you feel empowered, that you have somebody there who's like, there's nobody worse on a production than somebody who goes, oh yeah, that's great, every time you ask them what it's good, because even if it's bad, they're not going to tell you and they're going to let you walk into the flames with covered in gasoline versus like, no, you might want to like go take a shower and put on this flame retardant suit and then walk through the flames and maybe try it that way. And, you know, people will thank you in the end because they realize that like in the moment of like, I know what it's like to go through the process of making a film and like, oh, here it is. I got to make another decision. This decision isn't something that I'm like, oh, I'm making up in my head. I'm going to run through it in my head. And if I don't like it, I don't like it. This is going to live on screen. People are going to judge this. Like, good example of what you said before. You're like, I'm going to watch this movie and I'm going to watch this GoPro footage and I'm not going to like the GoPro footage. Well, as a filmmaker, I went into it this way. I fucking hate found footage. I think found footage films suck. I think they're so boring to watch. So every time I pull out the GoPro in this movie, I'm going to make sure it doesn't look like a shitty film with the camera going around all shitty and not having good cinematography and having no purpose to be on at that moment. I hate found footage films that just seems like, yo, somebody would have turned off the camera by now.
Or threw it at the person chasing them.
Yeah, or dropped the camera or done something. So how do I make this so it feels naturally in and out? And when I saw 127 Hours and The Martian, I said to myself, this is how you do it. You don't do full-time found footage. You only pull it out when you need it. And then you can still get all those great aspects of it. But then you can put it in your pocket and fucking get back to real cinematography.
You took 127 hours. You saying that you took 127 hours, you made it into a Jason movie.
Yes, I did.
I'm sure you've said that in thousands of interviews, but it just come to me that I've never seen The Martian, so I wouldn't know that reference. But I mean, he gets injured.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, dude, look, the love and appreciation that you have for the Friday the 13th series. I just totally skipped over the question I wanted to ask about, did you ever have to get physical with Dave McRae if he was opinionated on set? Did you have to lay hands on him?
No, we always had great conversations on set. That was the thing. Like, I think that's the thing I'm most proud of Dylan's is the fact that, you know, there were a couple of times, like there was one scene in particular that we were all kind of sitting around and we went through rehearsal and I raised my hand and I was like, what do you think of this? And just sort of brought something up. And, you know, Dave had memorized this scene and was ready to go and was ready to do it. But it was a conversation and Dave sat down and thought with it. And I was like, you're trying to do this. So with these words like this and Cecil, like we're trying to keep ourselves from going too much this way on stuff. So I feel like we are starting to drift into this section that we didn't want to be in with Freddie. We wanted him to be scary. We want him to be funny, but we don't want him to be funny all the time. So how many quips can we throw into a scene or how many things can we do? And so we would sit
98% scary, 2% quips.
Exactly. So we sort of went through the scene and we're like, how many of these feel more quippy and how many of these more feel dangerous? And so even with the performance, it's just the word down to the words. And we were like, we had to have an honest conversation. And so once everybody sort of identified that and was like, okay, all right, now taking what's there as a structure, how do we build this scene with these intentions, but make it 98% scary and 2% funny?
Yeah.
And find the right time for a punchline. And we had to go do it. Like Dave had to go off and learn new lines and do all that stuff. But everybody was like, yeah, this is making it better. Yeah. Okay, good. We got to this. Because there's always certain things when you get to set, like you want to fix everything in pre-production, but you don't always get to everything. Or sometimes you get to set and you actually hear it out loud, like in front of everybody. And you go, okay, this isn't quite what I had in mind. And this isn't coming out how I wanted it. There's definitely there's something not feeling right here. So, you know, when you first make a film, you can get overwhelmed by those times. So you just fall back on what your original idea was, you go with it, and then you get into an editorial and you like damn yourself. Versus like having, like once you've gone through it a few times and you've changed the tracks while you're going at the same time and you're sort of used to it and you know that there's room to do it, you sort of get more used to being able to think on the fly and being able to change things up. So you can, instead of saying, well, next time we'll get them, we're going to get them this time. Like we're not going to make the mistake. We're going to skip the mistake level and we're going to go right to home run level and we're going to make this great. And so that's what I try to bring to sets when, I'm there, is to help people really kind of push back on their worst ideas and amplify their best ideas and say, this is when you're hitting home runs and this is when you're striking out. And it's not personal. It's just, this is, if you wanted my opinion and you think I make good work and you think that I keep a level of standard, not to say that I'm perfect, because there are things that I go back on my films and go, man, I wish I had one of me on set to say, don't do that.
What's one of those things? What's one of those things that you watch Never Hike Alone and you're like, I wish I hadn't.
Oh, there's a lot. I can't necessarily remember Never Hike Alone, but in Never Hike in the Snow, my biggest regret on that is not making Dr. Hill more, not combative, but more action oriented. Like, she wanted to go out and look for her son.
Mm-hmm.
And part of that was budget. Like, I couldn't get her back out into the world.
She was really good too. She was really good. But
Yeah,
but going back to what Ronnie was saying though, with you being a former athlete, if Dave were to step out of line, you would handle him with ease, right?
No comment.
I love that's the question. Dave McCray.
Could I handle him? I don't know. We did do a Freddy versus
brother.
Jason photo shoot. So maybe we'll have to not settle it in real life, but settle it as Freddy versus Jason.
Hey, Vinny, Dave don't want to say these lines. Get over here and talk to him. I'll be right there.
What I heard, you didn't want to do what's on the script.
Okay. How did you get Thom Mathews? That is one thing that a friend of ours wanted you to ask. How do you go about getting Thom Mathews into these movies?
I owe all of that to a gentleman by the name of Barry J. He is the owner and proprietor of Barry's Boot Camp, a worldwide fitness chain that happens to be pretty rad. Barry is a big Friday the 13th fan and a filmmaker himself. He saw the original Never Hike Alone campaign that we ran on Kickstarter, the one that we said we needed $40,000 and we only raised 29. So we didn't get the money, but Barry was one of our big backers. I think he came in at like $5,000.
Nice.
And we asked him that when the campaign didn't go through, I had put up some money. My family had put up some money. And we sort of had like this nice little nest egg of money. And we're like, since you were willing to give us through the campaign, do you want to do it like in real life? And then like, we actually get all of your money. We'll still give you all these perks and things. We'll order all this. He's like, no, don't order this. I'll just put it into the money and let's do it. He was a big fan of Thom Mathews. He ended up knowing somebody who knew Thom. As a birthday present, they hooked up Barry with a dinner with Thom to go meet and greet. And so during the dinner, he brought up Never Hike Alone, said, I'm producing this fan film. Would you ever think about acting in it? And Thom, like being nice, said yes. He said, I would think about it. I'll at least look at it. But in the back of his head, and he's told me this, he's like, in the back of his head, he was like, a fan film? Fuck no. Like, no way in the world. And then we sent him our first trailer and he looked at it. And even our first trailer, he was like, oh, this is different. And
it's legit.
It's legit. Okay, cool. Yeah, I guess I'll meet this director, whoever this guy is. So I met Thom at a little restaurant and brought my laptop, and we had filmed half the movie at this point. This is like January 2017, and sat down with him, and I was like, here's our second trailer. And I showed him the second trailer. And when I showed him the second trailer, that's when he was like, what do you need me to do? And I was just like, here's my idea. It's like, we got this.
Free.
Yeah, please. No, Barry took care of that. So thank you, Barry. No, it basically came down to, I have this scene in my head right away, I was sort of like, I have this scene with the ambulance. I've already shot half the movie. Like, we're not going to go in and like write in a big Tommy storyline, but I can see Tommy growing into an ambulance driver. It's something that will keep him, finger on the pulse. It's a job that like an ex-con could have, different things that like.
No offense to ambulance drivers out there.
No, but I mean, like, it's something that like, I know an ambulance driver and I know some people.
Your hate mail to Womp Stomp Films. Courtesy of
no,
Vinny
but I
Boo.
mean, it was something where I think that like somebody with his troubled past, like he could go get like certified. He could, find himself on crime scenes and things like that and be tapped into like, the CB radios and all those things. And so when something comes up, he'll hear about it and he can be one of the first on the scene. My inspiration for that was like, we didn't see him in part 7. We didn't see him in part 8. So if you imagine the end of part 7, there's that, police line that's up around the entire property. The house is blown up. It's all this stuff. There's a fucking firemen like clicking the mask together. And imagine you're Tommy standing on the other side of that yellow line, being like, "You need to let me on the other side of this yellow line." So I put him in the lake. Where is he? Let me go look. And nobody will let him look. And then he sees the paramedics walking around. He goes, that's my way in. So ever since then, he's done it. But then obviously, like, so Tommy thinks, oh, I'm going to find Jason this way. Then what does Jason do? He gets on a boat and goes to New York. So Tommy is foiled for a second time. And Tommy hears about this crazy thing that happens. And what is Jason doing in New York? But then Jason had to come back at some point. And so ever since Jason's come back, Tommy's been looking for him. He just hasn't found him. Because if he did find him, they'd be fighting to the death. Either Tommy would die or Jason would die. That's just what's going to happen if those two get into the same room together. So, I said, like, after all this time, I think that, like, Tommy hasn't seen Jason. And I feel like I was trying to sort of echo fandom and the fact that we haven't seen the real Jason in over 25 years. Jason Goes to Hell doesn't count because that was a completely retcon fan film that did everything it could to, like, undo the mythos. Jason X is a silly film that is fun, but not what we were looking for as far as the final ending for Jason Voorhees. Freddy versus Jason is Scooby-Doo meets Freddy and Jason. And 2009 is a
stupendous movie.
Is stupendous. Is a missed opportunity for the standpoint of it was a one and done film. They couldn't build a franchise off of it. It didn't do what it was supposed to do for fans, which is launch a new franchise. And it didn't even fix any of the continuity errors. It actually just amplified them to an nth degree in a way that, like, they just didn't give a shit. And for me, I was like, I wanted to feel like it's echoing that, like, no, we haven't seen the thing that, like, really we loved in a long time that felt like Jason was coming back. And so that's what Tommy is. Tommy is sort of bringing us back to this time where he hasn't seen him either. So the first time he sees Jason, this is the first time he's seeing Jason all of this time. And that's sort of what we've been exploring with the Never Hike Alone world, doing Never Hike in the Snow and Disappear.
Yeah.
And now Never Hike Alone 2 is sort of like, what has Jason been doing? What is Jason's motivation in these movies? What makes him different from the Jason that we used to see in the past? But also what makes him the same from the Jason that, like, I love characters who learn. Like, there's fun characters who don't learn, but there's a characters that sort of, like, if you keep making the same mistakes, you're sort of boring. And Jason, if he keeps just getting up and getting himself killed, it's sort of boring. What if he started, like, what I wanted in 2009, which was, what if he got smart? What if he started staying out of trouble? What if he did, when he killed people, he actually got away with it and never drew attention to himself? So that was something in 2009 I didn't like. The fact that he shoots a kid with an arrow in the head in the middle of the lake while he's on a power boating across the lake. So when he crashes into the shore somewhere with an arrow in his head, what do you think? You know what I mean? Like, that's going to attract trouble. If he goes and kills people and they go missing, that's going to attract trouble. Jason isn't trying to attract trouble. He's trying to deter it. He doesn't want people to find him. He wants to be left alone. But for a guy who wants to be left alone, he spends a lot of time going out into the woods and killing people for no fucking reason and drawing attention to himself. So I wanted the Jason that was promised to me in 2009. And that's what our Jason is. This Jason is sneaky. It's smart. When he sees Kyle and Never Hike Alone, he sees that, oh, this is a capable hiker. Yeah. This guy could fight me. He has a knife. He is armed. If he gets away, he's coming back with people. And I don't want that to happen. So I'm going to let him come deeper into my spider web. Never Hike Alone 2. Why do we show the spider web at the beginning of the movie? Because I treat Camp Crystal Lake like a spider web. It's a metaphor.
Oh, wow.
I know I'm probably skipping way ahead on Ronnie's. I'm sorry. I know I'm skipping way ahead on Ronnie's question list, but are you more excited for this Peacock series or more nervous for this Peacock series because of everything you just said?
No, I'm excited. This is what I've always wanted. I wanted them to expand on this lore and go back and explore things. And, like, in the movie, I always knew that, like, well, you couldn't do, like, you can't do 30 seconds of Pamela running around in black and white and getting her head cut off by some giant machete that no one has ever produced in the history of mankind. There's no reason for a 10-foot machete at a child's, like, camp. They're made 29 inches for a reason, because you don't need them any bigger than that. Like, other than that, it's just made up. They don't make that in the world. And it's sort of like, what is, like, is this a cartoon or is this a movie? Like, pick one. So, like, anyway, back to the thing. Pamela, like having such a short little thing in that movie almost felt like dirty. Like this didn't do it justice. This didn't do Betsy Palmer justice. Like I need a story about this woman, about why she loved her son so much. And like, why is this love so special between this mother and son that this mother's willing to come back and kill for her child. And this child is willing to come back from the dead and continue on her curse. Show me a love that's that powerful, and that's something interesting on screen that's worth watching. So when Brian Fuller says that that's what he wants to explore in this series, I'm all for it, because it only strengthens the bond that they're going to have, that when she passes on and Jason moves into killing people mode and he starts seeing her ghost around like she does in Never Hike Alone, that we see that relationship, and that it's a two-handed relationship, and it strengthens the franchise, and it makes it even more powerful to see that Jason is driven to kill to get revenge for his mother. And
what if they go the other way? What if they make it where she really can't stand Jason, but she's crazy, so that's her excuse for trying to kill people? But Jason, thinking, just like an abused dog, comes back for more and more love, love me, mommy, love me, mommy.
That's true. I mean, but that's the thing. Like, as long as we get to see it, you know what I mean? As long as they take me on a journey that I feel like these characters are making natural choices, and I'm drawn into them as characters, then that's what I want to see. I definitely don't want to see the Rob Zombie version of like them being like shitty. And like, I'll tell you this, I don't want to see a rape baby.
No,
I don't want Jason. I want Jason to be like a natural accident.
That's what I'm worried about. It's the reason I'm so worried about this. I'm worried about this sequel, because this prequel series, because Bates Motel. I always say Bates Motel. I think they're going to find and you may love Bates Motel, Vinny. I'm sorry if you do.
I didn't think Bates Motel was that bad. I only watched about the season and a half, though.
Yeah, I think it went like 22 seasons. So but I'm just worried that they're going to try to be. Is it wrong for me to say don't get too smart with it? We want a backstory, but necessarily do we want it explained?
Really, I think it's as simple as this: is that in the time period, the 50s, if they keep it in the 50s, I don't know if they're going to do 50s or 80s or what they're going to do, but even in both worlds, like, it's hard to be a single mom.
Yeah.
It's hard to be a single mom of a child with a mental handicap.
Yes.
Everywhere you go, you're a social pariah. Everywhere your kid goes, he's going to get picked on, and I think that what it is, the ultimate betrayal for Pamela is she's going to go her whole life being kicked out of everywhere she goes. Her family kicks her out. Everywhere she goes, she gets fired because nobody wants to deal with her weird kid. And by the time she gets to Camp Crystal Lake, that this has to be the first time, and these people need to make her feel like she belongs. In a way, it has to have that get out mentality where hey, you don't have to worry about that here. We're forward thinking.
We're family.
We're not going to join you.
We're all family.
We're all family. Yeah, the classic family. We're all family. We're not going to judge you. Things happen. We love your child. We love you. We're going to take care of you. Oh, hey, by the way, Pamela, we stopped watching your child today and he drowned. Sorry.
We're so sorry.
Oh, well, who's supposed to be watching him? In my opinion, the best move that they can make in the entire world is the person who was supposed to be watching Jason is Steve Christie as a teenager. 16-year-old Steve Christie is drawn away from camp, and he was supposed to meet up with Jason. In fact, Steve Christie and Jason used to be best friends. Steve Christie was the one person who would actually go out of his way to protect Jason. And the one time he didn't, he drowns, and he feels incredibly guilty. It is his fault. It is negligence. He should go to jail. He should go to juvie, but his father has too much weight. They're a founding family of Crystal Lake. That's why they have this land. This land is like prestige. This was like where the Indians used to come to have like big time, like spiritual gatherings. This part of the lake was so special to them that they said no one should ever stay there, that it's just meant to be nature. No man is ever supposed to go there and live there. We're just supposed to go there and appreciate it. So what do? They purchase the land and they build a camp on it.
Vinny, I don't think you can say Indian. I think you have to say Guardian now.
I ain't no Indian. Yeah, okay. The Cleveland Guardians are out there doing infield practice.
No, I was going to make that joke. Maybe Jason knows there's a reservation nearby. That's the reason he can get away with that arrow going through that dude's head.
Maybe. Oh, yeah. So he just blames on the reservation. So they go down there and bust those dudes down and like.
They just arrest them.
So,
and-
so,
Just arrest him really
so
quick.
Ronnie and I are guilty, just like every YouTube channel, of making predictions. Are we going to see Jason's father? Is Crazy Ralph going to have an influence on this show?
I just
But
don't. Yeah, I think
No,
Crazy
go ahead.
Ralph should be in it. Definitely, he should work at the camp way back
Yes.
when. He should definitely be the janitor. He's like classic janitor material, or like
What if he's
groundsman.
like? What if
He's
he's
like a cropsy.
What if he's helping run the camp, and then you see the decline in his life? Like he's there, and this death of
And
Jason.
he wish he could have said something. And he's sort of rooting for Pamela. He's like, she's going to get you. You know what I mean? Like, but I mean, I think what it ultimately comes down to is that like Steve should be arrested. Steve should be sent to jail. But the family's too powerful. Nobody gets in trouble, and everyone just expects Pamela to shut up and keep living her life. And there is no husband. There is no abusive dad. There's none of that. It's just been her and him, and that's all they've ever had. You know what I mean? And because you know what? No one dates her. No one wants to take her out on a date. When you look at
she's a split personality.
when I think you have, she's a little bit of that pearl. She's got a little bit of that pearl in her. You know what I mean?
She's talking in multiple characters in part one. She believes she's Jason.
Yeah.
She's a split personality. Kill her, mommy, kill her.
Totally.
She's so broken. And you don't know if that's from Jason's death or if that's just something that was amplified by his death. I mean,
well, there's that. There's this fact that like she's probably always yearned for a life secretly, like guiltily, like yearned for a life outside of her son where she could have lived a normal life. And I'm sure that Jason wishes that he could just be a normal kid and make friends. Wish he could make his mom happy. You know, there could be a thing where like maybe Jason doesn't drown. Maybe Jason runs away because he thinks that that's what his mom needs to be happy. He misunderstands her. You know what I mean? And he takes off.
He makes her life harder, and he thinks that's the right thing to do.
So he fakes his own death.
He's drowning.
You know, but I want to see Jason make that decision. I want to see those things happen, and I want it to be told in a way that doesn't feel stupid. I want it to come at me like Last of Us. Like Last of Us did a great job this week of launching their story and getting us behind people. Obviously, they're building it off of something that's already been tested, tried, and true. But you know, that opening scene about like the whole thing about like how could this virus spread or how could a fungi spread, all these different things, like it's all taken to the point where like this feels like a real thing. It's grounding it to feel like I feel like I'm experiencing this as a character or as a person just watching in that world. I feel like I'm sucked in and it's real. And all these people are real. I know these people, or I've known someone like these people, or I am this person. I can relate to that. And it just needs to have that. And then from there, it just needs to pick a lane, human Jason or undead Jason, and it needs to follow that storyline through all the way to the bitter end.
Hey, what do you guys think of this?
Change it up all of a sudden just to change it up. You know what I mean?
Yeah. What do you guys think of this idea I had? You know, I mentioned a bunch of characters earlier that could get introduced, but I haven't seen anyone mention this. What do you think about, and I'll go to you first, Ronnie. What do you think about the Jarvis father being introduced in this show?
Jarvis' father?
Tommy and Trish's dad, who is never mentioned or anything.
I mean, I think that you could have it so the Jarvis family is involved. The Jarvis family could be one of those families in Crystal Lake that has some type of cachet. And if you wanted to, because this is going to keep going on in multiple years, you could have them as a part of it before. Those are people that can go at it because the Jarvis dad was at least established and mentioned. Oh, dad's in New York. You think he's going to come visit? You know what I mean? There's something to build on there. That's what I'm saying. Like there was never I know that, you know, Elias had a scene in part 6 that was never put in the movie, but there's a reason. It's because it was bad.
That's a terrible idea.
It's a terrible idea. And the whole, like, Jason is the product of some other evil person is stupid. And, you know, that's what I keep saying. Like, if you take it away from the aspect of mother and son, this is all driven by them. The minute you add someone else in that all of a sudden adds to Jason's creepiness or adds to his evilness, diminishes the character. It becomes something, it becomes body jumping demon snakes. You know what I mean? Like it becomes, oh, he's got a sister. You know what I mean? It's like, when? you 8 movies deep. When did he get a sister? And where has she been? And where has this family been in the storyline? Why even bother introducing this stuff? Because this is not what we want. And this is sort of like jumping the shark, just like they do and so many other, and like You just want something that feels like it, like with Never Hike Alone. We always just try to fit within the framework that's there and not break it too much, but say like, this is something that when you look at the movies is mentioned or can fit without breaking anything. It actually seamlessly fit, that if you wrote this into the film, it actually fit. That it wouldn't be like, but you have to do this and this and this. You know what I mean? Like the only thing we do that with is Camp Forest Green. You know, we have to explain that our Camp Forest Green and the original Camp Crystal Lake are not the same place. Like in our world, Camp Forest Green was basically, if Packanack was the closest thing to Camp Crystal Lake, then Camp Forest Green superseded that and became the next closest thing to Camp Crystal Lake. They built on a fresh set of land too close to the camp, and Jason walked through there on his way back to the actual camp. So there's two camps. But people do, you know, sometimes they ask that question, but very few, because as long as you're telling a story that people want to keep up with, they sort of don't question it because it feels like it's going in a natural direction. It doesn't call itself out to be like, hey, we're doing this big thing that's jumping the shark and we're just going to pretend like we're not doing it. Like, if you can do that seamlessly, you can sort of like make minor changes as long as those changes improve it, you know, and it becomes to a better idea. Like, I think the idea of Camp Crystal Lake being so scary that no one has ever gone back, not even to destroy it, makes it a much more powerful place than, oh, it's been rebuilt 12 times. You know what I mean? Like, it's sort of, you want it to, that it just creates that much more mystique. It's like the Neibolt house in It, or, you know, the Sawyer house. It's like, it has that mystique. You don't want to change it. You want it to have its purity. And, you know, that was one of the main things I think that really worked for Never Hike Alone. And so we've really tried to keep up that spirit through all the movies of it sort of being there and being the original camp and all that stuff. But
Ronnie, another Venmo just came through. You want to read that?
We got a bunch of them, actually. I was trying to split them up. All right. So $4 from Sleazy J. Weirdest fan encounter. And did you dance with Corey Feldman?
I've never danced with Corey Feldman. I was supposed to work with him on 13 Fanboy, but I showed up the same day that he was leaving, so we never got to talk. I did see him at the premiere, but we didn't get a chance to talk.
Is he okay?
Yeah, he seemed fine. Seemed like he was doing great. He did a funny little character in 13 Fanboy. I thought that was pretty funny.
Why didn't he play himself? Did he think he was too big to play Corey Feldman, or he just?
No, I just think he wanted to try something different. I just think he didn't want to play himself. He wanted to be someone else. You know what I mean? So
do you think that it would have added more to it if he would actually played himself? Or
I think it only would have added more if he played himself, if he was playing a bigger role in the film. If he was showing up more and he was part of the people that were targeted or one of the people that were killed, I think that would have meant more. I think him just being like, hey, everybody, I'm Corey Feldman, and like bouncing would have been kind of not as great. But every other alumni that shows himself in the film has an encounter with. The only weird fan encounters I've ever seen are fan encounters I see happening with other people. And it's always just some poor horror girl who gets asked questions by the wrong dude, and the guy who just doesn't realize that he's asking the worst questions in the world. I always feel bad, but those are the weirdest encounters. But other than that, I don't know. Fans have been great to me. I've had a lot of great experiences. I don't have any bad stories.
I'm not sure if you're familiar. You know, Vinny, don't get me wrong. This has been great, and you're awesome. But John McBride will always be our favorite director. And I don't know if you've ever seen Cannibal Campout or
I haven't seen that.
Wood Chipper Massacre.
Wood Chipper I've heard about.
We actually got to interview him before COVID, and he's a great guy. But anyway, what I'm getting to is he promised us a role in his next movie. We're also big fans of Jeff Ward, who I'm sure you've watched the classic Swamp Ape that was filmed down in Florida. Yeah.
Oh my God. Can I do a remake of that? Because that sounds like such a fun movie.
We're going to get to that later. But Jeff Ward promised Ronnie and I roles in the sequel that's coming, you know, hopefully by 2030. I know Never Hike Alone 2 has already been established and wrote. I get that. I'm not going to abuse our new friendship to push us into, you know.
We have ideas.
But Ronnie and I want to be the grandkids of Ethel from Friday 13th Part 5.
You dildo.
In the next movie. So
if we ever
just keep that in mind. We're Hicks. It'll work.
I'll keep you guys in mind.
Now, look, Vinny, you're not going to blow us off that fast. I have a great idea for a fan film, and I just don't have the funding or the time. So here's what I'm just going to pitch it to you right now. I'll never be around anybody famous again. I think Blake has an idea too. So I play the daughter of the hitchhiker from Friday the 13th, Part 4, and I'm trying to find the daughter. Yep. I'm trying to find. I look similar to the.
Have you ever seen Ernest? When Ernest dresses up like the old lady, it's similar to what Ronnie's going to look like.
I'm going to play the daughter.
Medea action.
I'm going to play the daughter of the hitchhiker. Hey, honey, you got a sister from Friday the 13th, the final chapter, and the whole movie is going to be me trying to find out what happened to my mother.
Okay,
it's not bad.
Let's do it.
Well, no, I mean, we ain't got to do it. I'm not ridiculous or anything, but that's just my idea. So, I mean, I would have the headband. I would want to know. And plus, it gives away the backstory to why she's hitchhiking. She had a baby and she ran away from it.
Yep.
So there you go. She's trying to get
go. And just at some point in the movie, somebody has to tell you something that you don't like, and you squeeze a banana.
Yes. Every scene, I have a banana like Brad Pitt. And
you're eating a banana in every scene. And it's called Swamp Ape 2.
So for my scene, I know these fan films, they're anti-nudity. I want to be riding a guy. Ronnie, stop. I want to be. We finish, and I'm gonna be like Bob. I'm gonna go get a beer, right? I'm gonna go get me a beer. I'm gonna go get a beer. When I come back, my partner is under the sheets, and I'm like, "What are you doing?" And as I get closer to him, you guys be thinking Friday 13th Part 2. Jason comes out from under the cover, and I scream. And when I turn around to run, I see my partner who's folded in half on the wall, and then Jason gets me. So I just want like a brief 30-minute.
30 minutes?
If he'll just tear me in half. Jason,
which part you want to be torn in half in?
Both. And then I want Jason to literally tear me in half.
That'll be the other one.
But okay, so my idea for a fan film, and before I tell you my idea, because I'm very funny about my ideas, I need you to commit right now, Vin. I need you to commit right now that after your success for your next movies, that this will be by 2026. I think I'll be done writing my treatment by then. You are 100% committed to this. Okay. Have you ever seen Harry and the Hendersons?
Yeah.
Okay. 36 years later. I'm assuming by then you'll be able to get John Lithgow. I have two. Is it called treatments? I don't know the lingo. Is it treatments?
Hold on, let me get my
like a description of it.
I have two treatments. If we're able to get John Lithgow, the treatment number one, John Lithgow's dying. And he tells his son, Ernie, I'm sure you guys are super fans of the movie like I am. His son's name was Ernie. He tells his son, Ernie, look, before I go, I want to go to the forest and I want to see Harry one more time. And he's like, Dad, you got less than a week left, Dad. He's like, son, I want to see Harry, please, one more time. They get to the woods. Harry and the Hendersons, great family film, right? Get to the woods, it turns into a horror movie. Very similar to Never Hike Alone. Pretty much replace Jason with Bigfoot.
No, but Harry has rabies. No, it's like
Harry has rabies. Now, if we can't get John Lithgow,
but he has to put Harry down. They kill each other. That's how he goes out.
Well, yeah, they kill each other. Exactly right.
It's like biting into him.
If we can't get John Lithgow, then the movie opens up at Lithgow's funeral. You never see him. He's in the casket, and Ernie's like, my dad's last wish was for me to go find Harry, so I'm going alone to find Harry in the forest.
What do you think Ernie's up to?
Wait, in real life or like the character?
Is he still working at the gun store? Have they kept that in the family?
Well, yeah.
I don't know. I like my idea about being the daughter of the.
All right. We'll work them together. It'll be like a road movie. You're looking to find out what happened to your mom, and you give them a ride. It's like planes, trains, and automobiles.
Yep.
What do you think about Halloween Ends? Jumping the tracks here real quick.
Look at that face.
I don't know. It's just not my cup of tea as far as like there were just certain things about it that I felt that it just wasn't, I don't know. I just didn't love it. I wanted to love it. I wanted to love the trilogy, and I just felt that like that you want to talk about thinking too hard. It was like it was kind of thinking too hard, and I think that they sort of it was just there was the roller coaster ride of tone. You know what I mean? It just felt that like, is this the same? Is this the same guy? Is this like? There's a lot of different weird decisions being made by characters, and again, like I get super heady about it. I kind of jump. I get like really like trying to focus, but I don't know. I think what really got me was like Michael gets some dude to like start killing people by like eye fucking him. And I was like, it's going to take a lot more than one scene where he's just going, ooh, and they look at each other and be like, you're like me. And I'm like, this is so against like everything I've ever known about this character. You want me to just jump this shark with you? Felt very odd.
The more I thought about this, I think that if you go back to Halloween Kills, if that mob would have beaten Michael to death, and killed him right there and erased the curse of Michael Myers from that town, and then part 3 is this kid getting bullied and turning into a new Michael Myers or a new serial killer, I think it flow. I think it's at least a little bit. People are going to be mad because they expect Michael Myers to come back in this last one, but at least you got to say the dude died in part 2. I mean, in Halloween Kills, excuse me, he died in there, and this is just how evil continues on.
What I've been pitching to people when I say, like, you know what I would have liked is if Michael would have done what he did at the end of Kills, wandered off, and then this kid, however many years later, after being bullied, after going through all this stuff, discovers his dead body, the dead body that no one's found yet. And knowing that he's dead and knowing that he can take up Michael's persona, he makes a decision to do it. Like he decides that he's going to do it. And there's something about encountering the body that could be supernatural. It's not staring into Michael's actual eyes that are staring back at him. That I swear in my memory, there was like a weird swirly thing going on in his eyes,
yes.
Like he was hypnotizing him. Like that he wasn't staring into swirly-eyed, like misty-eyed Michael, but there was just darkness behind his mask. Darkness within those eyes, staring into that darkness and seeing that darkness enveloping him as a character, Corey as a character. And then when he starts to act weird and Michael starts to show up, you realize that he made the decision and that he's using the town's fear of Michael again, that people are starting to get paranoid about Michael again as a way to like take his power back. And I feel like it was just more of a focused energy on that. And it was more of a focused storyline on that. Not trying to cram both of them into the movie. By trying to put both of them into the movie, I feel like you can't do one without the other. Like you couldn't do Roy Burns and then Jason shows up. Because where's Jason been this whole time? And I thought he got cremated. But we'll make part 6 anyway. So it was just sort of like, again, like even with the first Halloween remake and then Halloween Kills with like Evil Fries Tonight, and then this, it always felt like each of the new Halloween movies, in the first Halloween movie, I think it's Sartain, and sort of like how he sucks the momentum out of the movie about 3/4 of the way through.
Yes.
They just insert one storyline in each of them that is just too heavy for the film to carry, and thus takes it away from being like an A+ film and makes it like a C+ or a B-. But again, you're staring at me like this could be an A+. Why did you do this? Why did you add this part? Like, we didn't need this. Nobody was asking for this. Like,
but Vinny, in the first movie, the original Halloween, we have a doctor trying to get him back into the asylum. In 2018, we got a doctor that wants to know what happens if he helps him break out of the asylum. See, I mean, I get it. I get it.
But at the same time, it's
like I just hate the Sartain stuff.
Yeah, but then like the movie sort of has to take these like really sort of cheap directions in order to get the film back to where we wanted it to get, which was Michael versus Laurie. And they had the mechanism that was a very simple mechanism, which when it's chasing, what's the girl's name? The daughter? Allison. When he starts chasing Allison after she comes back and finds her friend on the fence, that chase should have went from that point all the way back to Laurie's house.
Yes. And that's how he gets back there.
And you could have done this, the Sartain stuff somewhere in that realm where like he's at the house with them and that happens outside and he uses the dad in some way, some way, shape or form. But you needed that tension to carry on. You needed that like Jamie, like the thing we love about Halloween Part 1. And so like, just to show you I'm not talking out of my ass, but the thing I loved about Halloween Part 1 is that when Jamie goes into that house, The moment she encounters Michael, it becomes a nonstop encountering of encountering Michael, get away from him, encountering Michael and getting away from him. And it just goes back and forth between that. And when they did that with Michael and then they stopped it, they put him in the back seat and then they're driving around with him. And like, it just sort of starts to get all that momentum. You couldn't get it again. I just never felt it again. And it just sort of got really, really silly. And
they were actually foreshadowing Halloween Ends by having Michael have an accomplice.
Yeah, true.
What did you think of the flashback scenes in Kills?
Loved that. That was my favorite part of the whole thing, because I said, if you're going to get rid of my favorite movie, which is Halloween 2, you need to show me what's better than Halloween 2. Now, I do love that scene up until a point. That point is Michael has no weapon. Michael is just choking this dude out. There is no reason why this cop could have just walked up to Michael and put the gun against his head. He had no reason to shoot him from across the room. So again, it's sometimes they get to these scenes and the scene is going to be so good, and then they got to figure out this one little thing and they go, fuck it. Shoot him from across the room. Why do you do that? Why wouldn't you just walk up? Don't worry about it. Just shoot him from across the room. And it's just like, let your characters, like, you got to give your characters like no other choice. That's when it becomes good. When the audience can think of something ahead of your character and the character doesn't make that decision, you're not thinking as smart as your audience, and you're going to lose part of your audience because you're writing down, you're writing dumber, like you're writing to the lowest common denominator versus like, and not taking the challenge of making a scene better versus like, no, I guess this is what we have to accept. We just have to accept the fact that he's going to try and shoot him from across the room, even though it doesn't have a clear shot. But also the fact that like he doesn't have a weapon and like all this stuff. So like, again, like nitpicking things like that. But other than that, I loved that scene and I love that they carried it out that way. I like that they got Jim Cummings to play that role. Big fan of Jim Cummings and what he's done with some of his work, Wolf of Snow Hollow. And I can't remember the name of the other movie, but Wolf of Snow Hollow is one of my favorites. I think he's a really clever actor. So that was really, really cool.
How much does that trilogy change if Laurie wrecks the bus in Halloween 2018 to try to kill him?
She becomes Tommy Jarvis.
And he gets loose. Yeah, she becomes Tommy. You're absolutely right.
And then the town hates her.
And
it's she
gets her family killed.
Really? Yeah. I mean, that's sort of like something that would have been something. You know what I mean? Like, it's okay for characters to make selfish choices. It's okay, to have them make the wrong choice based on selfish decision, because at least it's something that you could say like, yeah, this character would make that selfish decision and fuck this shit up. Like, it was just really weird. It was really weird in the way that they sort of approached a lot of the things and tried to like buck the narratives or like try to buck the trend in a certain way. And in the attempt to buck the trend, bucked it for no reason. And I think in a few different ways. And, something to say about like, there aren't like great parts in those movies. There are really great parts. They're really great scenes. The kills are really good. The effects look really good. There are some really great Michael scenes. I just look at it from, if you really want my opinion and you want me to give you a constructive criticism on it, this is how I felt as a viewer. I felt that there were too many things in it. I didn't enjoy it as much as the first time that I watched Halloween and Halloween 2 back to back. I'm not a huge fan of the back end Halloween movies. I think they're a little clunky. Halloween 3 is what it is. Like, I'm not going to sit here and be like one of those people who's like, oh, Halloween 3 is like the greatest movie in the world. It's going to be great. And I'm not here telling you that it's the worst movie in the world. Michael Myers was in it. It's pretty shitty that they duped people that way. It's a decent movie. It's pretty good. But as far as like Michael stuff, I'm here for Michael. I don't know. I just feel like, give me my Halloween, the original Halloween and Halloween 2, and I'm happy. I don't need any other film in the series to say that like you're missing out on anything. If you just saw those first 2 movies, you'd be fine. If you just saw the first movie, you'd be fine. But, I feel like they wanted to come back. They wanted to bring new lore to it. And they did, and they succeeded in doing that. I think they did a better job than Rob Zombie did, trying to make him, the product of his environment versus, something that's just plain evil. Yeah. I think that there was something more to explore in that world. In fact, what you were talking about before was actually another fan film that I was a part of called The Face of Michael Myers, which was set in a world where Michael had died, but Michael's spirit was inhabiting people and getting them to kill people. And then they couldn't prove that they were inhabited by Michael, and they would go to jail for it. And the next person would go out and they'd start killing people.
Like Fallen.
Yeah, exactly. And that never got crowdfunded, but it was one of my favorite projects that I was going to be a part of. I got to play Michael in it. It was a lot of fun. It looked really good. You can look it up on YouTube. It's called The Face of Michael Myers Prelude, because we did like a preview short of what the short was going to be. And it's very simple. No kills or anything like that. It's just Michael kind of showing up and doing stuff. But you see it's more like heady and stuff like that than it is straight up like Myers film.
What's harder and what's more fun to play, Michael Myers or Jason?
Jason's a lot harder to play. There's just more components. There's more to keep an eye on, like internally. Michael is like simple, not like simple, easy to play, but the craft is to be simple, to move as least as possible, to be swift and precise and empty. Like, I just see Michael as a void, a walking void. Like, he's just got one mission, and that's to kill. And he has no emotion. There's no, there's no reasoning with him. There's nothing. He's just driven to kill. He's driven to take life.
With Corey in the sewer.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, no, you can't take my mask. Oh, don't take it. That's Michael's voice.
That would be the best.
Oh, please. Can you imagine they add that? Oh, please, come on. I love you.
Can we talk fan bases for a second?
Yeah, sure.
We did our show a couple of weeks ago about Friday the 13th. We just talked random stuff. And I told Blake, I think the Friday the 13th is one of the fan bases that hasn't become just extremely toxic.
Mm-hmm.
I think the Halloween fan base.
Friday the 13th?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm sure you've gotten a ton of stuff. I'm sorry. But it just seems like if you search, there's a lot more civility when it comes to what people want. I know a lot of people get mad based off what the favorites are, but it just seems like there's a lot more discussion when it comes to Friday the 13th, and there's a lot more open-minded people than when it's Halloween.
Yeah, I mean, I think that now
obviously you've been in the line of fire. I get that.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think that there's a sense of Halloween fans are a little bit more snooty than Friday the 13th fans. I
don't understand why. Friday the 13th is the far superior franchise.
As a franchise, but I think that Halloween is such a good movie, and Friday the 13th was based on Halloween, and you can really take Halloween and it's recognized in cinema as being a great film. There is no Friday the 13th that's recognized as being a great film other than to Friday the 13th fans, and they like it that way. And I think that there's a little bit they take it a little bit less seriously, but it's sort of. I think that's what it is. I think that Halloween fans see themselves as a higher class horror fan. They're a little bit more of a refined taste. They're bringing wine to the party. They're not bringing a 6-pack of Coors Light.
I was going to say Coors Light for the Friday the 13th.
Or Miller High Life. They show up with a Miller High Life or a Schlitz and just sit back and they're like, I love it when the movies come out. Just take a drink. So there's sort of that side to it. I think that I've been in some nasty flame wars talking about Friday the 13th, about which one's the best one and what is the theories and what's the lore. I think it's just the internet in general is full of a lot of negativity. It draws that people out. And when you're trying to type it out, there's no nuance of sitting in a room like this and making fun of something, but doing it with a lighthearted tone to be listen, it's no hard feelings. I'm just saying this for the joke aspect of it. I'm not trying to rip your life out, but there's something about typing something into a chat forum or a comment, and it feels like someone's trying to kill your unborn children. They're just so, it just feels so contentious. And so, with Halloween being at the forefront, there's a lot riding on it. I can see why people are so amped up, because I remember in 2009 when we were really amped up talking about it online in back channel forums, on, all that stuff. And, I feel like Friday the 13th fans have been beaten so hard as fans because we haven't had a good movie in a very long time. A really good movie that the entire fan base is this is the shit. We all love it. And that's one thing that I'm very proud about for Never Hike Alone, is the fact that a majority of the fan base likes it. It was something that a majority of the fan base could get behind and be this was enjoyable. I like this movie. I've added it to my marathon every year when I watch Friday the 13th and Friday the 13th. I'd rather watch Never Hike Alone than Friday the 13th Part 8 or Jason Goes to Hell or some of these other movies. It's a cool compliment. That's what we've always wanted. So I think that we're sort of just like happy to be here right now because we had the legal stuff. It killed the game. It killed the movies, like the development hell, all this stuff. It's like all we have to talk about are the films that are there, and all we have are each other. So we don't really have much to argue about. I'm telling you, when this Peacock series hits and they get a new movie out there, forget about it. You're going to see the nasty side of Friday the 13th, just like you saw Halloween. I swear, it's just going to happen.
I believe you. I just don't want to think about that. I can't imagine myself unless it's just extremely.
The minute they do something in Peacock that's just the tiniest bit woke, they're gonna throw it down the tube and get mad. They're like, why is this show about a woman? Where's Jason?
Why's Blake having sex with a guy?
Yeah, what's going on? Like, there's no. We just needed it. Why they got to insert themselves into everything? It's like, well,
I never noticed that Jason is in the logo of the title.
Yeah,
that's great. That's great.
Yeah, he's sitting there. I that's one of my favorite. That was taken from. I got inspiration from Just Before Dawn. You ever see that movie? Canadian slasher movie. They have a great poster of like the shadow on the logo. And so I was trying to figure out a way to work that into the logo. And that's how that ended up in there. And right in the middle, right in the K, which is actually, that outline is an outline of me when I first started putting my costume together. And I took this picture to sort of get the perspective, and it was perfect. And it became this thing that I was able to use and like create a bunch of artwork with. And I just put it in there and cut it out and went, oh, that's cool.
We get off air here in a minute, Vinny. I'll give you my size so you can send me a shirt that says "Never Hike Alone" right across the chest, right here, free of charge. Look at this!
I just pulled it out of the fresh wash.
That shirt is awesome. Hey, look! I saw a photo of you. I can't remember where it was, but you had a Jason Lives shirt on with the writing across the chest that apparently doesn't exist anywhere, and you probably sell them, but.
No, I had
Jason Live shirt.
Oh, I can't remember. I got it a long time ago. I got it like 2016. Yeah, I wore that like almost every day on set. Not every day, but I wore that a lot on set every time we went out.
Yeah, the only thing you can find is like, something with the box art of the movie. And I just like simple stuff like the writing across the chest and things like that. So really quickly, because we've kept you forever, let's get a quick ranking if you don't have anywhere to go.
I can start with my tops.
Friday
Jason Lives, Final Chapter, Part 2. Then it goes.
You can only do your top 4 if you want to. You ain't got to do like all of them or top 5.
I can't. I kind of have to do a fresh wash through them again because I watched some of them the other day and I didn't watch all of them. But I love my next tier is sort of like Part 3, Part 5, and Part 1 are in their own little category.
Yeah.
I love Part 8 over Part 7.
Yeah.
I think that Jason, other than showing his face, looks great in that movie. I don't mind any of the stuff about being on the boat or not being in New York or any of that stuff. Like, I just think that Jason is pretty boss in that movie. I think there's some weird stuff, with her seeing the hallucinations, but it's not awful. Or it is awful, but I can just kind of dismiss it and forget that it's there. Part 7 just feels like a ripoff of Part 4. The telekinesis thing was really not my favorite, but actually I would say I like Jason X over Part 7. Part 7 gets to sit at the top of the poop pile because it's got the best looking Jason, or one of the best looking Jasons.
Jason looks really good in that one.
I mean, if Jason doesn't look great in that movie, that's the worst one of the worst ones. After that, I would say, you could put Jason Goes to Hell, Freddy vs. Jason in 2009 all in the same row for me. Like, they're the ones I least want to go back and watch. I do at least appreciate Jason Goes to Hell from the standpoint of its own fan base and sort of like watching them like a rare creature. Like, oh, there goes a Jason Goes to Hell fan. Please tell me, why do you love this movie? But they'll tell you, and it's sort of like interesting. Like the effects are great, and the production quality is the best production quality that a Friday the 13th, film had up to that point. It has better production value than Jason X. I just think Jason X wins me over with its charm a little bit more, knowing that like it was a movie that wasn't supposed to be good and somehow manages to be entertaining with that shitty CGI. But Freddy vs. Jason, like, it's fine. It's just a little kid's movie. I hate the way Jason looks in that movie.
Me too.
I think he looks too dopey. I think he just looks so dumb. And some of this, like him being scared of water and all this stuff, and the dialogue. in 2009, it's the same thing. It's just the characters. Like, I don't believe that those characters are friends. I don't understand why they're hanging out together because they don't seem like they would be in the same friend group at all. They don't seem like real people. Jason does a ton of stupid things that they said he wasn't going to do, but he still does anyway. And then they never really figured out any of the lore. Like, for me, 2009 sits at the bottom of my list because they took every opportunity in the world, $20 million budget, 11 other films to look at and say, this is what fans like, this is what fans didn't like, and went for like the lowest common denominator of a movie rather than being like, oh, let's explain this, or let's go and give them a solid thing saying, in our world of Friday the 13th, when you see Platinum Dunes Friday the 13th Part 2 and Part 3, this is an undead Jason, or this is a human Jason. So if this is a human Jason, we're going to make sure that he follows very specific rules. It took you think about like the iconic way that Jason got Shelley's mask in the original film.
Yes.
In Part 3, the mask is set up through a series of scenes that we see where it's set up and set up and set up, and then all of a sudden it ends up in Jason. So we set up that Shelley's a jokester. We set up that Shelley has this mask, and then Shelley's missing this mask, and Jason shows up and impersonates him just like Bob from Halloween 1, shoots Velma in the eye, and calls it a day. And then he's wearing that mask for 2 million more films. In 2009, he literally just pulls back a sheet and there it is. And then he puts it on, looks at himself in the mirror and walks away. And it felt very underwhelming. Even the original scene where like the guy finds the mask, puts it on, smokes weed in it. And then Jason just casually walks down the stairs at noon, because that's when I go to steal stuff from like things, when things are actually open and operating. That's when I go to steal stuff from farms, and then just cuts the guy's head off willy-nilly. For me, I would have pitched something where it's like, at first we meet that guy chopping wood. And what's he doing? He's wearing the hockey mask as a protective thing for the wood bouncing against his face. So the first time he turns around, he's wearing a hockey mask. We get a nice little scare with it. And then it's with him in other scenes, you know what I mean? And we get on a ride with that piece of lore that we love. We're going to watch it. We're going to anticipate these scenes. You know what I mean? And there wasn't any of that. It was just like everything was within the context of one single scene. The scene never feels like it reaches its potential. I feel like at its height is the scene where I can't remember Chewie's friend, but he finds him out in the shed. He starts running back and Jason hits him with the axe. That is the best. I wanted to see that Jason, like super athletic, like I'm going to throw axes from across the field. Like I'm going to drop down from things and do stuff. And there's some of that, but there's a lot of like, where's Jason? Oh, he's right behind me. And then the same kill over and over again. Or kills really aren't shot that well in a sense that we can see what's going on, like Trent getting thrown onto the spikes of the truck. I remember seeing that in the behind the scenes. It took me seeing it in the behind the scenes to see what actually was happening, that he was thrown onto a spike and like all of this stuff. And there's so many things that add up to me that being like, listen, I'll forgive these old movies because all of these people didn't know what they were doing. They had no clue what they were building. They were just making it up as they go. Now you know it all. Work within those framework and don't introduce new things that we don't want. And so they did a lot of that stuff, and they treated the fans like idiots in many different ways. Like putting Jason on that headboard was one of the most insulting things I've ever seen in my entire life. I was like, how stupid do you think I am? Like, second of all, if this is a camp,
why would his name be on the headboard?
Why would his name be on the headboard?
Maybe he can in as an adult.
It just seemed like so convenient and so dumb, and it didn't feel like there was anyone on. Like, I do feel like Shannon and Swift, the writers, understand Friday the 13th very well. They're big fans. There's no doubt about that. They need a director who equally loves Friday the 13th as much as they do to even slap their hands and be like, hey, we got to stick within this or within that and like really shape the lore in this way. And, I just feel like they're the way that I think that their downfall is like they're comedic writers, but their comedy doesn't really like get me. I don't laugh at their jokes. And it's very kind of like yuck type jokes versus like something that's like actually funny, like things that actually make people like roll over laughing funny. Or if it's not going to be that funny, don't try to be so funny. Like I'd actually really see like a more grounded and serious Friday the 13th with like one single guy who's funny versus everybody trying to be a jokester.
That's the formula. You always had one goofball.
One goofball. And I always say that Ted is the best goofball from all the movies. He's the only, like him and Shelley to a degree too. Like they're the goofballs that in the movies that they're meant to be the comedic relief, but they never overstay their welcome. Teddy and oh man, why am I forgetting? Teddy and Jimbo, like they're comic relief. They're a duo. They're like a little comedy duo.
Yeah.
They're fun. They don't overstay their welcome. You know, the comedy in part 6 is sort of spread out, but it's actually funny. Yeah, Court's funny, but doesn't overstay his welcome. They try to do it in part 7 with the guy who's like the comic book writer. Not funny.
Star Mummy.
Star Mummy. Sorry, Star Dummy.
Part six is my favorite. I love that movie. I watched it in the theaters as a 6-year-old. I remember I remember my great parents. I remember going and watching that, and I love that movie. That's my Jason. That not a lot of nudity, and that's great. You can watch it with anybody. The language is not terrible, and people hate the smiley face and the things like that when he throws a guy in the tree. I love that. I thought that the director was reinventing what a Friday the 13th could be, because he knew that people are there for Jason.
That next level. Tom did a really great job of taking Friday the 13th to a new level, not doing the same thing the same way. Yeah, I don't know. Like you said, like 2009 is just violently stupid in a lot of different ways, and it doesn't have to be. And I wish that like you could take that same script, make a few changes, and get it leveled out and commit to a few things, and then say like, okay, now we're trying to build it for this, like, and then get the second scene written, the second film written, and make sure that like they're going to fit, it's going to make sense, and then try to set some stuff up in one that you're going to pay off in 2 or even in a third. And that's the type of Friday that, like, if they're going to come back and make Friday the 13th movies again, like Peacock is going to do its own thing. It's going to take Friday the 13th in whatever direction it wants to go. Let that be the freewheel thinking place to go. With the films, you got to have a plan. You get 3 shots. You know what I mean? Look at Halloween. I mean, Halloween took some daring risks. Good for them. But you see how, you know, at the end of the day, people are watching these movies. They're watching it, they're watching it because they love it. And if they hate it, they're watching it even more because they want to come up with more reasons to hate it. So I get it. But they need to come up with something that I think, like, again, like my goal was I wanted Friday the 13th fans to walk out of Never Hike Alone with a smile on their face and say, that was a great experience. I want more. And it's the same. And with Never Hike Alone 2, I want to do something different. I want people to walk out of the experience feeling like for the first time in ever, they got a Friday the 13th that gave them a bookend, an ending to the series that they could walk away from and never see another Friday the 13th ever again and go, that's the conclusion to the story I've always wanted.
All right, I got 2 more questions for you. 2 more questions. Blake, real quick, what was your top 2 Friday the 13th? Were you 2-4 or 4-2?
I was part 2 and then Never Hike Alone.
So part 2, I think, is the best, in my opinion. The best movie. It's not my favorite, but it's the best movie. Part 4 is like right there underneath it. And I guess it depends on whatever day you watch it. I love part 6, part 2, part 4, just to get that out there. Part 2 is a great movie.
Yeah. And as a
so
kid,
well
Ronnie made me watch part 6 and part 3. I probably saw those more than any other in the franchise. Ronnie made me watch those constantly. But as
recorded on VHS.
Yeah. But as I got older and I got to explore these movies on my own as an adult, I just really love part 2. I love everything about part 2.
Yeah, part 2 grew on me for a long time. Like I was never a big fan of Sackhead Jason, but even as a Sackhead, the scares in that film are so good.
It's really good.
The way they set up all the scares, like there's somebody in this room, him popping up, the scene where he puts his arm through the glass when she's in the bathroom, that is so well timed. Like even like the push, like my favorite death in the entire series is Mark getting the machete to the face and then rolling backwards down the stairs. I think that's just brutal. Like the thought of rolling backwards on the stairs in a wheelchair alone is like an awful thought to even think it. Like that just scares
Yeah.
the crap out of me for some reason. So,
And I love how and I do love Jason, his look in 3 and 4 and 6, but I love in part 2 how he just looks like a normal guy. Like he's a normal build is what I'm saying. Like he looks like he's like 6 foot, 6'1", 175, 180 pounds. I mean, he doesn't look big at all. So
do you prefer him big or little, Blake?
I can't answer that because I do love how he looks in 3, 4, and 6.
Dude, that is the.
Now I will say this: I
look.
do not like him see him being taller than the Corn in like Freddy vs. Jason, and like Vinny said, having a machete that's 9 foot long. I hate that.
Sword.
Right, a kukri blade. I'm not a fan of, and then Rob Zombie did it. Hey, Michael Myers is going to be 6'7", 350 pounds, walking through the walls of the house. I'm not a fan of that. Like, I think it's more scary when it's a normal looking guy that's capable of doing all this.
And I feel like the more Jason becomes undead, the smaller he's getting. Like people kind of give me crap about like Jason not being huge. I'm like 6'3", 215, 220. I'm big enough. I can take out a lot of people.
Blake.
And there's that, but I never saw Jason as when's Jason going to Planet Fitness? Like,
yeah,
he was like, I can see him being kind of a big boy when he was like, maybe if he grew up and stuff like that, but I don't mind him being small as long as he's intimidating. And I think that was one thing with Jason's costume too, is like Freddy versus Jason. It felt like a costume, 2009, it feels like a costume. It doesn't feel like these are things that he actually found. And with Never Hike Alone, I wanted to be like, what are things that he could actually find? What's clothing that he would find on like a homeless person, somebody who would be camping out in the woods. And I actually have a whole backstory for Jason's look about how he ran into this almost like John Rambo like veteran who's wearing his stuff from like going around and being a vagrant. And that's the costume that Jason took after he got back from Manhattan, that he took it from somebody. And that it actually has a story behind it about how he got these clothes. And that's what I wanted to feel like. I don't want it to feel like, oh, we came up with this costume in production design. You know what I mean? Like Jason X kind of has that look, like a hockey mask that doesn't look like any hockey mask you've ever seen before. Jason Goes to Hell. He has like his shirt tucked into his pants, which was really weird. Bloated because he had that big coolant suit on. I like what we did with Never Hike Alone, Jason. I feel like that was something I was really serious about, redesigning him and doing it in a way that was like, this is the shape language that makes for a good Jason. And yeah, I'm not CJ Graham. I'm not 6'6", 270 pounds. I'm not Ken Krisinger. Like Kane Hodder is like just over 6 feet. He's not overly yoked out. You know what I mean? Like he's actually kind of lean in a lot of different ways. So this notion of a big troglodyte meathead Jason is sort of, again, I think it's something that fans sort of apply to him without really thinking about who Jason really is or what he really is.
I think I asked Blake this question on our last Friday 13th show.
Like Richard Brooker's not huge either. He was like 6'2", and he was lean. He was a gymnast.
A normal sized guy. I mean, when he becomes
Ted White's like 6'5" though.
Oh, is he?
Ted White's 6'4", I think. He was super tall.
Is that reason he lurched a lot in that movie?
I think so. Yeah, he was big.
Because he's so tall. So in Friday 13th Part 2, my question to you is, do you think Jason ever kills anybody ever again if Paul doesn't open up the training facility near that camp? Or does he just exist in the forest?
No, I think when you look at sort of like Chris Higgins' story, you have to imagine that was a year before Packanack. You know what I mean? Or that was a time before Packanack. So Jason was still out there. I think what it is that anyone who like Never Hike Alone, like Packanack being there increased the chance for it. But eventually, like Never Hike Alone, someone's going to wander through. Eventually, like Never Hike in the Snow, someone's going to wander through. People are going to get curious. People are going to go up there. People are going to want to change things. If everybody ever wanted to go up there and buy that land, like Jason would be doing the same exact things that his mother did. He'd be sabotaging their construction. He'd be sabotaging things. He'd be killing people. He'd be, you know what I mean? Like, I feel like it would always, there was no chance in hell that Jason, that's one of the themes in Never Hike Alone, is that like as bad as Jason tries to just stay hidden and never be bothered, it's just never going to happen.
Ronnie, you can edit this out. Vinny, I do extensive research on anything I watch. I immediately go and look up every actor, everything. Did you know the star of Never Hike Alone was in a Skinemax film?
Andrew was?
Yes.
I didn't
And
know.
then
Which
I went to that movie and I broke it down. And let me tell you, he is fantastic.
Kyle's great. I mean, Andrew's great. I love Andrew. He never told me he was in a Skinemax movie.
Oh, he's in
I
a
gotta see
Skinemax
this.
movie.
What's the name of it? Heels Have Thighs?
No, I think it's called Submission.
Okay. I know he was a cover model for romance novels. I know that. That was his claim to fame when I met him.
He did a great job in that movie.
He did
a
really good.
Andrew's great. He's a really good actor. I wish he got more out of Never Hike Alone as far as like getting booked for roles, because I think he totally, like, the stuff that I see, and like I see a lot of horror actors getting praised for certain films like now, especially like in the last 6 months. Like there's a pretty big film that came out and there was a lot of like hoopla around certain people in that movie, and I'm like, yo, like, good for them. But what about Andrew? This guy acted circles around all these people. I've been watching it for years. Like independent horror films come out with like people like you don't know before, like acting. I'm like, my boy Andrew can act circles around these people. Like he's got a lot of talent. Like I wish more people would call him and try to bring him in because of his connection with this. But you know what? Never Hike Alone 2 is going to be another example for him to go out there and prove to people. You know, his character makes some really big decisions and has some really big moments in the movie. So it's going to be, I can't wait for people to fall back in love with him. You know, it's been so hard being away from him this long, like from the pandemic and all this stuff, you know, stretching out us being able to make the movie, you know, being able to make it now and realize that like, yes, like Kyle is so important as a character in this story because he's the person who let the dragon out of the cave. You know what I mean? Like he's the one who ventured. He's the one person who did something that no one else has done in 25 years. He survived 25 years of people going missing. Tommy not being able to get answers. The cops thinking it's Tommy. The cops not being able to get answers. And all of a sudden, this kid shows up and changes the dynamic of everything. He upsets the balance. Jason can't finish him off. And so now it's all DEFCON 6. And Jason is on a suicide mission to kill this guy for ruining his perfect life. And he doesn't care who gets in his way. He doesn't care what happens to him. But at the same time, this kid has to deal with it. Tommy knows what's going to happen. The cops don't know what the hell's going on. So there's a lot there that's like big, but it's all centered around him. And I love that. And
it's almost like he's the new Tommy Jarvis in a way.
He really is. They share a lot in that, and they share a lot in common. And we bring that out in the movie. We have them address that. There's a lot of scenes where like there's doses of reality that Kyle has to do because he survived his movie. You know what I mean? Like he doesn't want to come back for the sequel. He wants to go live his life, but the movie's not over.
What better type of character to be able to survive Jason? Immediately, we want to think about people with combat skills and muscles, but a guy that can run and hike and escape, and you know, self-perseverance of himself with wounds and things like that.
127 hours.
Exactly.
127 hours, but instead of a rock falling on him, it's Jason falls on him.
It's a guy who can run and hike and screw like crazy.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Look, hey Vinny, I know you got to go because I got to go too. Kids are finna get upset. But we talked about how you got Thom Mathews. How did you get Yabang, Officer or Sheriff Rick?
That's really easy. I got Vinny through Tom. And I had actually brought it up to Tom to say, Tom was like, hey, you ever want to use Vinny Guasafar? And I was like, I was going to ask you if you knew him.
I loved him in Next to Kin.
He's great. He's great in everything he does. Vinny's awesome. I love working with him. He's one of my favorites out there. And I'm so happy he's a part of it because I wanted that connection to part 6 of like being like, he became the sheriff. He'd be the perfect sheriff. He'd be the perfect like antagonist to Tommy. Like they have that built-in relationship. Like, so to be able to work with the built-in relationship, it's less screen time I have to take to explain why they don't like each other. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Fans already get it. I can spend less time and I can focus on just like having them not like each other instead of establishing why.
So as a novice to some of to all of your films, really, has he been covering up missing people around the area?
He just can't solve the crime. So anytime Jason kills somebody, he erases his tracks. And so that's what we tried to show in Never Hike in the Snow, is the fact that like all of these things happened. We did that press conference where like all those things happened, but all they found was a set of footprints and a hole in the ice, which if you really do the sort of the thinking on it, oh, Jason took all the bodies, punched a hole in the ice, threw the bodies in the water, took all of his shit, jumped in the water, and he's in the water freezing his ass off right now because he has to hide. Again, Jason doesn't want to have to do this. Jason doesn't want to sit in the cold water, but he does what he has to protect himself. And he does what he has to protect his life and protect his mother and protect her, you know, his shrine and things like that. So, you know, I think that, like, you know, the cops are sort of just trying to see what they have. And I don't want to give too much away, but the only thing they ever seem to find up at the camp is Tommy. Tommy seems to always be around. You know what I mean? Like, and Rick just has that personal vendetta against him.
Yeah.
So if all these people are going missing and Rick can't solve it, even if it's not Tommy, he'd rather pin it on Tommy and be labeled the hero rather than sort of like this hero label that Tommy gets to work around with, because everybody in town loves Tommy. Tommy did this shit back way in the day. But if you ask me, he's a crazy person who's going to snap one day and start killing because Jason's not coming back. And so he's going to make it. He's going to, you know, basically like sort of, he makes himself look like the hero. If Jason's out there and he's fighting the dragon, then he's the hero. But if he can't, if there is no dragon out there, he'll, you know, what's it when the country does like its own false flag operation, like Tommy is the false flag operation of Friday the 13th, that he's creating the killing so he can be the hero. He's starting his own fires. But the truth is that Tommy just is just as haunted and confused as anyone else.
Yeah.
And that this whole town is sort of captured in this curse that, you know, in a certain way, that if you give your attention to Jason, then he's going to mess with your life.
I'm not kissing up to you or brown nosing. I mean, I'll have plenty of time to do that when we're making our Harry and the Hendersons movie. But I thought it was brilliant writing when you had Tommy say to the sheriff, "You're lucky I locked you in that cell." Yeah. I thought that was brilliant because that's the only reason he's alive. That is the only reason he's alive.
One of the creepier scenes, probably the creepier scene between both movies, Vinny, is the officer cam when he goes up there, and
I love that scene.
Jason is kneeling. It is so creepy. My imagination runs wild because I'm one of those people. Where does he use the bathroom? What does he do? I'm like, is he sleeping? Is this his rest mode, or is he just worshiping his mother and just thinking about a simpler time? And then the candles go out and he's gone. If the cop would have just not went by standard procedure and just blew the back of his brains out and just with his shotgun, it's over. But because he didn't, in a gust of wind, the cycle continues.
Well, Ronnie, I'll tell you this before you hand it off. Something I love about that scene that you're talking about is it goes from body cam to normal, you know, camera handheld or whatever, and then back to body cam. If you look at the time on the body cam, it stays accurate the whole time. Like if you watch, it's steadily counting, right, and recording the time, Ronnie. And when it goes to, you know, whoever's filming, and then it cuts back to body cam, the time is correct. I love that. Little details.
Yeah, we always follow those. We were following those details pretty closely. I love that scene. Because you try to do things, it's like, what if you tried to arrest Jason? Just ask that simple question. Never Hike Alone needed to go out on a bang, literally. And I needed something that, because I see it as like I built Never Hike in the Snow as a reverse cheeseburger. The meat's on the outside of the buns. It's when you first see the movie, it's when you end the movie. In the middle of it is all that part of like filling in all the gaps. And like it has moments of scares and moments of things. But I sort of wanted to open up the world of who each character is and the role that they're playing in this town, and the way that this town sort of reacts to death. And what is like, we always talk about people dying in Friday the 13th movies, but we never really think about, well, that's got to go to somebody's like mom and dad and tell them that their son's dead. So to like put that light on to be like, yeah, you guys just, you know, cheered when that dude just ate a fucking axe head in the middle of his jaw and watched him die. And you were all like, great kill. That's awesome. And then I'm going to make you watch his mom cry.
Yes.
You know what I mean? So it was sort of like a nice thing there. So by the time you get to the end of the movie, now you sort of have a different view on death. And you know that this cop is sort of not necessarily as bad as Rick. He's trying to do the right thing. He wants to solve the crime. He wants to find this kid. And if they would have just let Tommy do his job, he would have been the one going into the attic, knowing exactly what to do, knowing that he had to shoot Jason right away and not give him a chance to attack. So you see that by not getting along, that by Rick being an impediment to Tommy's search for Jason, it's causing more damage. So now you got this guy going in, and just the aesthetic of the body camera, putting the camera as the mechanism that puts the audience in front of your own character and puts them right away, taking them on another little tour of Camp Crystal Lake, showing a little bit more of what we didn't show in Never Hike Alone, being able to expand on the mythos, tell some stories, show that there are hockey masks there. Where did Jason get his new mask from? This pile of masks, and one of them happens to look like a Roy mask too.
Yes, I was going to ask you about that.
And then seeing the fact that, like, when Jason's up there, the last time we saw Jason, he was stuck in this trance of seeing his mother, that he's still stuck in that trance, and that this is sort of the way that the curse and that his mother's spirit is sort of making him feel okay about the fact that he murdered a child that really didn't do anything wrong. He just happened to capture Jason on camera, which is more Jason's fault than it is the child's fault. Yeah, he shouldn't have been there, but Jason shouldn't have got caught on camera, and that's why he's so upset.
Yeah.
And it's all subtle, you know what I mean?
And I thought that was a very sweet moment between him and his mom, even though, you know, obviously it wasn't really happening, but it makes you.
Was it?
Well, there you go. I mean, I just thought that was a really
what happens
cool
in
moment.
Jason's head. Well, I think what happens in Jason's head is sort of the mechanism of the curse. Like if there's a supernatural curse that is keeping him alive, like I think about it from this perspective, is Jason is like, how many more people do I have to kill before I can rest?
Yeah.
How many more people do I have to kill this until I don't have to do this anymore? And so here he is, he's feeling shitty about himself because here I am, I killed another person, didn't bring my mom back, didn't solve my mom's death. You know, I made it worse for somebody else. I'm the idiot who got caught on camera like a dummy because he's sitting there staring at himself like, oh my God, if this would have got out, I would have been done. I was so close. This kid got 20 feet from his car. I can't ever let this happen ever again, type thing. And then his mother's spirit shows up and says, it's okay. You know, I still love you. And he needs that reassurance. And that sort of like mellows him back down from like going out and doing something else stupid. You know what I mean? Walking around and plodding around the course, and he kills a hunter. And now people are looking for the hunter and all this stuff. Like if he can just stay in the cabin, he can just stay safe. That's the best decision. It just happens that this guy comes in, and when those candles blew out, that happened naturally. We were going to blow them out. We had a mechanism to blow them out. A huge wind gust came through the scene and blew out the candles, and everybody knew just to shut up and let it rest. And then I called cut, and I was like, I can't believe that just happened, because I was in costume for that. So like, if you don't know, the other guy who plays Jason other than me is that cop, Alan Mabry. That's Brian Forrest. So him and I swap costume all the time. So in one scene, it's him, like it's him with the mom, and then it's me when he comes up the stairs and I kill Brian. And so we're trying to get it so like he can kill me in the next movie so we can kill each other at some point. But yeah, that whole thing of like what would happen. And then I don't know, for me, I just had a lot of fun designing a scene that was like, I want to scare people. You think Jason's on the other side of the curtain. You know, we set that up pretty well. And then you don't really see that there's this piece of like ceiling hanging down that I was able to hide. Like I was originally going to go behind the curtain. And then I saw this piece. I was like, what if I'm in front of the curtain? And then I come out here. It's going to be quicker, but I'm going to get people before they actually expect it, because they think they at least have 3 or 4 more breaths before they're going to get to this curtain, this barrier, you know, this what's on the other side of that curtain. And I get him before that even happens. And the hand comes out and does it all. And it's not necessarily that Jason is the one who pulls the trigger. He's just trying to misdirect the gun and gets the guy to shoot his own head off. So Jason doesn't necessarily use the gun. He just defends himself and makes the guy shoot himself, which is brutal. Yeah. And then he sees that he's getting caught on another camera, kills it. And that's the end of that story. And unfortunately, like we didn't get a chance to jump right into this Never Hike Alone 2, because so people are starting to see what we're doing. When we do a supercut one day, we stomp on the camera, we go to black, and then we go to 3 months later and we go to the sneak preview scene. We see Jason have that, and we see that like Tommy's still been working about these things, and we start the next movie, and we show how time has progressed and how this has gone on, and this is the next episode. This is the next nice sneak peek of it. So unfortunately, we weren't able to do this 2.5 years ago, which would have been great. But in that time, we made a lot of improvements. We all became better filmmakers. I got to hear a lot of great feedback from people, and I was originally going to do 3 more campaigns, and people showed up. People showed up and gave us enough money to make a full feature film now for the first time in this whole time. You know what I mean? So, and there's still a chance for them to back it. We can still make it even bigger and better. I can add scenes. We can add a Harry and the Hendersons prequel to the beginning of the movie. And then we can do the spinoff with, Daughter of the Banana. Yeah, the Hitchhiker's Banana.
All I need is a chance. That's all I need.
And all that stuff. And, we can really stretch this out and do some extra money means that I can, instead of having to do a certain type of kill, I can amplify a kill. I can make it a little bit bigger. I can do a head cast. I can do a body cast. I can do different things that allow us to take someone's death and really, instead of showing it off screen, show it on screen, or hide it and be tricky with it. Be like, no, let's go full boat and really smash their head in. You know what I mean? So these are the types of things that we're trying to raise money for right now. Also with the post-production, being able to expand post-production and do even bigger and better things and spend more time doing that stuff. And then we want to do a crowdfund at the end of all of this to say now we want to do a super cut. I want to cut everything that we've ever shot, from Disappear to Never Hike Alone 2 and everything in between, into one massive film. And then everything that we did in the ghost cut that was a sort of news source footage that we took from actual real crime scenes and stuff like that. I'd like to raise a little bit of money to go and reshoot those and make those legit, and bring those alumni that did the voiceovers and have them as on-set reporters with doing that stuff, and kind of add that last little critique, that last little niche thing, do some really professional titles, and put together a 2.5-hour movie that is, Friday the 13th as a 4K, beautiful, surround sound Blu-ray that would just we'd fix the sound steps and Never Hike Alone. We'd do it all. We'd go back and remaster the whole thing front to back, bring in a real orchestra to do all the score and do it all.
Great score, by the way, for your movies. Great score.
I also think, honestly, that if they wanted to do a new Friday the 13th, that they should just buy Never Hike Alone and let us remake it. Just let's remake it with a bigger budget and give it a bigger ending.
See, I was just going to ask you, if they come to you and say you get to make your Friday the 13th movie, you would just make a bigger budgeted Never Hike Alone?
I'd either make a bigger budgeted Never Hike Alone, or I have a trilogy that would be a complete reset. Okay. It would do the things that 2009 should have done, and it's built into 3 different films. It just like 2009, it is built off the backs of the films that came before it with some different twists and turns, but it is a way that would set it off in a foundation that made sense, and then would do the things that we've seen before, but then do things that we've never seen before at the same time, which would be a lot of fun.
If Peacock calls you tomorrow and says, we want you to direct one of these episodes, how fast do you say yes?
I'd find a way to teleport to their office right then and there and sign the contract.
I can't believe with the talk of bringing anything Friday the 13th back that they haven't reached out to you, because you single-handedly rejuvenated the life back into Jason once again. And your films are absolutely brilliant in what you wanted to do. You can tell you love the Friday the 13th movies. You can tell that you want a smart Friday the 13th movie, and it shows in your work. And I'm just so thankful that I got to talk to you today about all this.
Well, thank you. And obviously, that would be great if I ever got an offer to come and do stuff. I mean, I'd do anything on those sets. You know what I mean? I finally got the opportunity that I've been waiting for since I got into the industry, which was I always wanted a chance to work on one of those Friday the 13th projects. They just didn't exist. And so now one exists. It's in the process of being made, not being shot right now, but it's in the process of pre-production. And I've worked long enough in the business to call around, and I think once the time is right, I need to get through Never Hike Alone 2, but it's not to say that I'm not kicking down doors and being how do I get an opportunity to interview for this show? And I don't see myself as I wouldn't go into this being listen, I'm the guy who made Never Hike Alone. You're going to let me direct all your episodes. All right. I see it as like, no, you guys, you know, as far as like what they go, Brian Fuller has done a ton of TV. He has a ton of experience. He's an accomplished writer. He does really great work. However he wants to build his show, he wants to build his show. I want an opportunity to prove myself. You know, whether it's going out there and working on the AD staff, and they wanted, he says he's got 4 seasons outlined. Okay. My goal is by the time you get through the end of season 4, that I will have worked my way up to the point where they would trust me directing an episode, but I will do what needs to be done in order to earn that right. And if they think Never Hike Alone 2 earns me that right, I'll take it. If they think I need to do more work on set, I'll do more work on set. And they won't get any complaints out of me. I just want an opportunity to work on an official Friday because that's been my life's purpose. That's why I moved to Los Angeles originally, was to work on a Friday the 13th project. And now that there's one actually going to happen, I'm going to work my ass off to at least get an opportunity to submit a resume. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work, because at the other time, instead of waiting for Friday the 13th to come around and give me an opportunity, I created this opportunity for myself. You know, it's not an official product. It's not as big as the official product, but it's way bigger than I ever thought it would be. And it's had way more of an impact than I ever thought it had. This is like, when people make fan films, they talk about the impact that Never Hike Alone does as their goal. I'm not saying that they say, oh, I want to be like Never Hike Alone. I'm saying before Never Hike Alone came along, we were all hoping to make the fan film that people went, oh my God, I want to watch this more than the actual movie. And there have been a few that have been made that way, like Dirty Laundry with Punisher. There's been a
Animal
few
Camp Out.
Yeah. All that stuff. And there's there, but it feels good that we made one that actually lived up to that. And you know, so I do get to walk away from this experience, no matter what, being able to look back on Never Hike Alone and be like, we did something special. Like, we are tied into the Friday the 13th. Like, we're in it enough, whereas as it goes on in time, and as I get older and life goes on and the series goes on, that in some way, shape, or form, we'll always sort of be there right under the surface, where people will be able to easily discover us versus us being sort of like wiped off the map, like some like flash in the pan thing. It feels good. So, you know, whether or not I get it, you know, we'll see. But as far as I'm concerned, it's been like an honor to kind of make it this far. And I just hope that it does. I hope that it does equal that, but I can't guarantee it, because this is a very weird and fickle business. And, you know, you just got to kind of take what comes.
I don't like the word deserve, but I feel like you've earned the right to at least have a shot.
There's no doubt in my mind, Ronnie, that we're going to be seeing this guy's name, and you and I'll be saying, wow, we got to talk to that guy who was a part of the reboot of Friday the 13th. Or, I mean, at this point, I just feel like it's going to happen. Especially, I mean, I watched Never Hike in the Snow. I watched it for the first time today. And, I mean, I'm very legitimately excited to watch Never Hiking Alone. Wait a minute, what's it called?
Hiking Alone.
Right.
What's the name of this movie?
Never Hiking Alone.
Never Go with Harry and the Hendersons Part 2. I'm so excited to see it and see what your vision is.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Don't Hike in the Snow, is it a prequel?
It is. It happens 3 months before Never Hike Alone. It was sort of setting up the world as it was before Kyle MacLeod came here, which is, this is how it used to be. Somebody went into the forest. Somebody went missing. Nothing was ever found. Nothing was ever done about it. Tommy would get pissed off and get in trouble for it, but they never be able to pin anything on him because they never had any evidence, and then life would go on. And so we pick it up 3 months later, where life has gone on. Dr. Diana Hill has not got any more information about her child. You know, she's living in disbelief. Rick is no closer to solving the crime than he was 3 months ago. Tommy is no closer to finding Jason than he was 3 months ago, but he's still just as haunted. And in the process of going about their daily lives, they're introduced to a character named Kyle MacLeod, and it changes everything. And everything that has sort of kept them from getting the closure in their life that they have needed, Kyle is going to provide because of what he's accomplished in Never Hike Alone 1. And now, whether they're there for it or not, they now have to deal with those consequences.
Yeah.
And if they don't work together, then those consequences are going to get them. And if they do work together, they will overcome the consequences. And it's about that formula, about these people coming together in the face of this. And for Jason, sort of finding closure to his story and finding closure to his purpose and coming and just finally like saying, screw it. Like it's all or nothing. And, you know, same thing for Tommy. And I think at the end of the day, it's taking these emotional arcs for these characters. And since Tommy's emotional arc got undone by part 7 and part 8, and Jason's emotional arc got undone by part 7 and part 8, this is our way of saying, this is how you end it. This is how you actually put it to bed. This is how you take this story that means so much to so many people. And, you know, it's like Old Yeller. You love it. You love this dog, but this dog is like, it's got rabies and it's shaken. It needs to be taken out behind the barn and shot. But you can't just do it disrespectfully. You can't throw it in the highway and let it get run over by a truck. Like, you got to take it down with dignity. And I think that this is going to be the most emotionally satisfying Friday the 13th ending that you could ever get. Like, I don't know how you, like, I put this formula together a million different ways. And this is the one way that I've kept coming back to, saying there's no better way to do it. This is the best way to explain it. And there's such an emotional release at the end of it that you would never think you'd feel this way about Jason. You'd never think you'd feel about this way about these characters. You'd never think you'd feel about this way about a fan film. But somehow we're going to do what the studios couldn't do, which is come up with an ending that actually makes sense. And so
can you give us a wink and a nod? Can we expect another cameo in this movie?
Yeah, I mean, I won't wink and nod. I'm working on cameos in the right places. We're actually going to announce not so much a cameo, but we got an alumni to return to play sort of like one of the kind of mid-ground roles. He was supposed to be associated with a previous film, and he had to back out because of scheduling. So he's going to come in and play one of the roles. And then, you know, we got, you know, I'll say it now. Tracy Savage is going to come back and do some work for us, play another news reporter. Since she did such a great job on the Ghost Cut and the extended version of Never Hike in the Snow. And then, you know, there's a lot of alumni that I've met now that I have them in mind. And so
do they worry the hell out of you? Hey, can I be in the movie, please?
No, not at all. I mean, some of them have asked and been like, hey, if there's an opportunity, bring me in. And my promise to them is like, listen, I'm not going to call you just to put you in the movie. First of all, it's going to cost money. I'm going to have to get you down here. It's going to be a whole, I'm not going to fly you down here to say one line and then send you back. Like, it's got to be something. Or I'm going to find like, you know, with Never Hike Alone, the Ghost Cut, I was able to call a bunch of friends, Debbie Voorhees, Adam Marcus, Ron Sloan, and Cindy Kanai, Vinny's wife, who was in part 6. And I got them all to play news reporters and just record their voices. So it may be big, it may be small. They may be a photo in the background. They may be in a newscast. Like, there's different ways I'm going to try and work them in. But one thing I promise you that I'm not going to do is I'm not going to force feed them on people. I'm not going to put them into a situation to sort of like take something away from a scene. Like, they're going to be a part of it and they're going to feel like a natural part of it. And if they're not, then I'm not going to put them in the movie because it doesn't do me any good. And it doesn't do them any good. And it starts to feel like, oh, this is just one of those fan films that's trying to collect, you know, alumni, like their collector's cards, and show them, be like, look at everybody we got, versus like, what are they doing in the film? You know, what are they actually doing there? Are they just like, is it bragging rights for you to say that you got this alumni? Or is it that, for me, what it is I establish like friendships with the alumni that I meet, and they say, you know, we have mutual like respect for each other, and I listen to what they want to do as actors, and I listen to what they want to, how they want to contribute, and I try to create that for them, not just be like, okay, so it's going to be this and that, and then you're going to come in and we're going to use your name on all the posters so we can sell more shit. It's like, I'm not worried about selling stuff. For me, I feel like we've made Never Hike Alone at a quality where the quality of Never Hike Alone is the draw. People are coming to Never Hike Alone because they think it's good. And that's what I want. Not because there's a name on the poster. Not that it hurts to have Tom and Vinny on the poster. But when I start adding more people, or if I add different things, like, I'm totally happy to leave people's names off the credits until people have seen the movie. And to have it be a surprise, get a smile on people's faces. Yeah. Like, I don't want to spoil it for Blake, but you got to watch Jason Rising, because we were able to sort of kind of pull some tricks up our sleeves with that one too. And you know, we never told anybody about it. And that was a strategy from the beginning. It's like, yeah, we could say this person's name that they're going to make a cameo in the film, but then it's going to ruin the surprise. Let's have it be a surprise. So Ronnie, don't tell him anything. Just let him go into it.
I won't tell him anything. Vinny, thank you for coming on our show. Really quickly, how can we, the fans, help you out with the production of these movies? Tell us where we can go, websites, how we can help. Not me and Blake personally, we're broke, but everybody else out there that's watching, how can they donate all their money to help get these great movies made?
Research Never Hike Alone 2 on Indiegogo, Indiegogo.com. That's our crowdfunding website. It won't be hard to find it. Womp Stomp Films on all social media. So WOMPSTOMPFILMS. You'll recognize the circle logo that we have. Check us out on YouTube. That's where all of our previous Never Hike Alones are. We have some original films like Pathosis and Imagine. And we're working on a whole bunch of other slew of new original stuff this year. We got some new campaigns that are going to launch pretty soon for some original work. We're actually working on a giallo short film with a friend of mine, which is supposed to be like the actually first gay-friendly giallo, because every other previous one has been like not so great to the gay community, even though the gay community loves the giallo films. It's just been not the kindest.
I think you're mispronouncing Jello.
The Jello films, yeah. So it's really cool. It's a film that I'll be able to talk about in a few weeks. But we're going to be launching that. We have a feature that we helped somebody make. A good friend of mine, Rob Varncall. It's called Fragment. So I'll be launching a campaign for that as a post-production campaign. And then I have 2 productions that I'm going to launch this year. One of them is EMF, which is a ghost hunting film with Thom Mathews starring in it. So it's a ghost.
I'm there.
Ghost hunting meets Never Hike Alone. Like doing the Never Hike Alone style with ghost hunting with Thom Mathews as the lead actor. And then we're doing an animated film. We're doing 2 animated films, one called Ghost in the Fog. That is a Friday the 13th Never Hike Alone fan film, which is sort of like Disappear, but just extended. It's a 7-minute animated piece. And then there's another film that I wrote that's been doing really well in the festival circuit as a script called Ghost Chicken, which is a horror comedy about a vegan restaurant that's haunted by the ghost of a chicken. So that will sort of be something we crowdfund later this year. So definitely follow us. And then we need you, instead of, buying a movie off the shelf and knowing whether it's going to be good or not, you can buy a movie from us and get your name in it. And then it will go out there and people will see it and you'll get a physical copy of it. And we design everything ourselves. We build everything ourselves. We talk directly to the Blu-ray manufacturer, which is really cool. So we get a lot of really cool perks. So definitely check out all that stuff and follow us for all the information and updates on Never Hike Alone 2. We start filming this April and we're hoping to release by October 13th of this year, not the next Friday the 13th. And so, yeah, get prepared for that.
Okay, so we will revisit, because I consider us friends now. It's not like certain people that go. We are speaking acquaintances. So when I send you 42 emails tomorrow thanking you, you got to reply to at least one of them.
Okay.
We want to get you back when your schedule is, when you're back in like stasis modes, like right here. And
definitely sometime this summer.
Yes, we would love to get you back on and talk everything and get into more Friday the 13th, because we could talk Friday the 13th for hours.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, guys. Support this man. He loves Friday the 13th. He's got great ideas. As soon as I hit this end recording button, I'm going to tell him about Monch Turd, the idea I have about the 8-foot turd that takes downtown Atlanta. We got a Killer Nerd reboot that we're going to bring back. That we're going to talk to
Nerd.
We got all kind of stuff. Vincent DiSanti, he's my Friday the 13th director now. He really is. I love these movies.
He's our guy.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Vinny, for coming on. We really appreciate it. And guys, make sure you like, comment, hit the bell notifications, subscribe.
Vinny, do you have any idea who could play Ernie in our Harry and the Hendersons movie? Just off the top of your head.
Kyle.
Ernie.
Needs to be early to mid 40s.
Is Mr. Ernst from Hey Dude still alive?
You know what? There's a guy by the name of Drew Marvick. You look him up. I don't know if he looked like Ernie, but Drew is a great actor and he's hilarious. He's got like a big beard and long hair. You could just say like Ernie, let it go. But he's a rad actor that would, I think, fill that role and do like, if you wanted comedic, he would nail it. He's a good actor anyway, but he's like super funny. I think he'd be perfect for it.
We can get George Murasant to play Harry.
Okay. I can get you somebody who plays Sasquatch to play Harry.
There you go.
I'll tell you after we cut, because it's also the same person who will be in Never Hike Alone 2.
Ah, okay. All right, guys. We'll see you next time.